Welcome to Phoenix Mobile Festival, our fourth annual conference. We've come a long way. From 2012, when we had it at Launchpad, we had one of those small conference rooms for the keynote, and now, look at this. We have two screens. It looks pretty good. So yeah, I was saying, the conference is getting bigger. Closer to like a Apple event or a Google I/O. No, just kidding. This is no Google I/O, and except for the beer, I'm no Sundar Pichai. Who I am? I'm Praneel Kandleri, one of the organizers of the event, and CTO and co-founder of Mokria. Mokria is a premier mobile solutions company. We work with companies like AT&T, Salesforce, Intel. With Intel, actually, we're working on pretty cool products in the mobile IoT and wearable space. The NDA restrictions again reveal a lot of it, but watch out for some very cool products coming out of Intel. With Salesforce, we did a design on an app called RelateIQ. They actually branded it as Salesforce IQ and launched it this week actually at Dreamforce. And with Twitter, we did a cool app that is used in backstages by celebrities. Do cool animations and video and that kind of stuff. And it has hundreds of thousands of retweets and stuff. So that's what I work for. A little bit about Mokria. All right. So I want to start out by thanking the speakers. They are the integral part of this conference. First of all, thank you for spending the day here with us and taking all the time to prepare for sessions like these. I know what it takes to put in a few decks and to talk for an hour. They spend a lot of time, above and beyond. If you can give a big round of applause to all the speakers. Okay. All right. Sponsors, without them, this wouldn't happen. Infusionsoft and sponsor this venue. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the cool T-shirts and the tote bags from other sponsors and the food, right? I want to talk a little bit about these sponsors. I'm sorry, the clicker, the computer is way in the back. All right, look, Intel. Most of you know about Intel as a processor company and all that. But they're actually coming out with some pretty cool products in the wearable and IoT space. I'm privy to some of that information, so I'm really excited for that. They have a session today as well. Definitely check it out. They have some RealSense developer kits raffles in that session as well. So don't miss that. Infusionsoft, thank you for sponsoring this venue. Without them, a big conference like this, it would be a big hazard to organize this. A special thanks to Anila, Michael Badgett, and Alison to going over and beyond to help us set up here. Infusionsoft, as you know, is the leading sales and marketing software for small business. It's a success story that personally I am proud of because it's out of the valley here. I know the entire story about them, and they started out at a small office, one-man, two-man office out of Mesa, and now, it's grown into one of the leading software company out of in the country. And our lunch sponsor is iFactor. If I can actually show you, all right? Just for a minute. They're important, right? We're going to spend more time on them because they're actually feeding us. There you go. So iFactor, they have a variety of products, a suite of customer communication products that include like utility maps, mobile apps, automated alerts. They work with a lot of the utility companies. They have products that engage with customers on outages, billing, payments. They also have a session today. Definitely go check it out. So I was saying earlier with Infusionsoft, their facility, I mean, this is not completely done yet. So, I mean, there's supposed to be a big projector, another one here with the clickers close by here and all that. It'll be ready by January, but like I said, they went over and beyond to accommodate us here, in spite of not having everything ready. Another gold sponsor is Tech2. They're a services and solutions company. They've been in the Valley since 2005. You talk about its stack. They probably have services and solutions that can help you. All right, our raffle sponsor. So there are a bunch of raffles at the end of the day. One of the raffle sponsors is Choice. Choice Hotels. They have about 6,300 hotels. Comfort Inn, Quality Inn, you probably recognize a lot of them. The other raffle sponsor is Tallway. They're an accelerator, incubator that will help innovative people transform great ideas into great businesses. They have a variety of a suite of services. They'll help startups with UX, branding, software development. They have a VC firm. Their High Tide is called, their accelerator is called High Tide. You should definitely check out Tallway. And Evenday. I want to give a special thanks to Scott Cake from Evenday. Even with about 200 people here, there were 200 to 300 people here. There were no lines. And the check-in has been smooth. It's a local company here. I'm really proud of Evenday. And a special thanks to my co-organizers, Anjali and Kiran. It takes a lot of time and effort to do this. And a little bit more housekeeping stuff. To plan your day better, download your mobile app. Search for PHX Mobi on the iOS and Apple App Store. If you actually star the sessions, you can plan the rest of the day. There are 23 sessions. It's a lot of choice, so to make it smoother between the sessions, take a minute now and download the apps and play with it and plan your day. And also don't forget to rate the sessions. The speakers spend a lot of time in sharing their knowledge with you. Giving a feedback for them is going to really, really help them as well as help us. The kind of sessions that you like, so we can plan and help this better next year. And in the app, you can actually follow the tweets. Make sure you're tweeting with #PHXMovie. Raffles and happy hour at 5 p.m. The raffles will be here at 5 p.m. and then happy hour followed by that. If you get too happy during the happy hour, there's Uber that partnered us and they gave a promo code PHXMovie. If it's the first time, you get $20 off a ride, which probably covers most of the valley. So the happy hour is sponsored by Phoenix Mobile Meetup. You know about it because you are RSVP'd there. We meet on the third Thursday of every month at UAT. We have a variety of topics related to mobile, UX, design, mobile web, anything related to mobile, IoT. So I want to talk a little bit about mobile and IoT, if I can get there. So I don't want to, keep saying that, we're in a huge mobile growth. That's old news, right? The mobile growth is huge. Go check out the Meeker reports, annual reports. I mean, the growth is just unprecedented. With the internet and PC revolution, everyone was connected, and now with the mobile and IoT revolution, everything is connected. I know in '99 and 2000, when Java came out, I was actually waiting for it because everybody said that you could run Java on your toaster. Didn't happen. But those flying cars kind of dreams are going to come to reality sooner. And as you can see that headline, everything is going to be connected. Your toaster, everything. So what is the impact of it? Well, there's this impact as well of mobile. You've probably seen that live more times. But there's a lot of good impact as well. I mean, every part of our life, there's mobile effects. With education, for example, Eneza Education is a non-profit organization in Africa. It actually helps students
in remote rural areas of Kenya, through SMS, they actually share this information, give them resources, which wouldn't have been possible without the mobile infrastructure, right? With healthcare, there's unprecedented access of information for us. I mean, you can download apps. There's remote monitoring. There's portable sensor that's going to improve your health and monitor and improve your lifestyle a lot. Human trafficking, there's a negative side of it. It's probably gotten easier for the traffickers, but the positive side, I mean, there's a global initiative called Polaris Project that organizes all the data with all the trafficking hotlines, and it helps all the trafficking victims to talk to these hotlines across borders. I mean, obviously, when they're between borders, I mean, these are the things that affect people, the victims there. Disaster relief and emergency. We live in Phoenix. We have a test storm every day, but we still get those annoying emergency alerts on our phones. Those are annoying for us, but for people that live near water, it's life-threatening situations like a tsunami alerts, right? I mean, those are really helpful. So we take a lot of these apps for granted, but the impact of it is really huge on a global scale. So today, I'm actually proud to announce that we're launching. So again, our conference is getting better. We're launching startups. We're actually launching a startup, launching a product of a startup that I think once it achieves its mission, it's going to save a lot of paper, so saving trees and the environment. Actually, without actually revealing any information, I'm really proud to announce one of our organizers is launching the startup, Anjali Dinelli. I'd like to invite the founder and CEO.
Hello, good morning, everyone. All right, thank you for coming. I'm really excited and very happy to launch startup, my soft launch for the startup called Trill Apps. My mission is to kill paper business cards. In this era of digital, we don't even carry credit cards with us nowadays, but we are still carrying business cards. So if you look at that George Costanza, how he's carrying so many things in his wallet, we are still doing that with business cards. And as I said, my mission is to get rid of carrying so many things around with you and be up to date. The challenges we found is, this happened, I went to a couple events and everywhere I go, I collect business cards. Just now I collected some. So, okay, I go home with these business cards. What do? I remember some of it, and if I didn't get a chance, like I'm traveling, I'm flying, I come back, and I have to really think about what happened. So how many times I even tried I run out of business cards when I really needed to connect with somebody. And I'm like, oh no, can you please write down my number? Can you please give me an email address? It's like, always, I wish it should be this shouldn't be this hard when we are doing like tsunami alerts or rescuing people. This is really simple, everyday, annoying thing which can be dealt better. The business cards are doing the one solution fit all. We have different personalities, meaning in every day we have a business side, we have our personal side, we have our hobby side, but with the business card, you have only one way. You print it, it has either everything or it has nothing. So I can't cater or I can't organize them better. I can't connect to people the way I want to connect. So with this Trill app, that's all we are going to do. We are going to customize it. We are going to give you the ease of branding yourself. If it is your company, we are going to give you even the possibility that you can have multiple cards for multiple audiences you have. And how we do this? Trilling, we call it trilling. Trill means usually, trill is the meaning of sound waves in a certain pattern. And we transfer your business card to your friend, whomever you want to share, with the speed of sound. And literally speed of sound, I'm not exaggerating. We use sound waves to transfer your business card to your friend. in this digital world, you always worry that, are you broadcasting it? I don't want to be broadcasting my information. So this is not broadcasting, this is actually sound waves. Sound waves have a tendency not to travel too far, they'll be around you. So you can give your card to your friend as you hand your paper business cards, because you selectively hand stuff. This will still have that selective handing thing and have all the nice things, what you want to do with it. You update it, let's say you have something updated, you change your job, you have your new email address, you have your new phone number, update it, and guess what? You gave the card to two days ago to some person, they will also get automatically all these updates. So you never have an outdated card with you, and you are never outdated with the style you want to go. So that's what we are trying to solve in here. So you can do all those things, and also we have partnered, or we are right now having you the option, giving you the option of creating your card from the LinkedIn if you want to. We thought that's a good place to start. Most of you want to have a business card and LinkedIn information, so we are pulling it automatically for you. And also we provide the card management. Like you don't have to take a pen or a paper, recollect your memory, or while they are trying to have a conversation with you, writing down the notes on the card. This one will help you do this. You can search by tags, notes, and manage better. So first, and I would like to invite you all to come please try out the beta version. As any startup, we are hustling a lot. Last night, 12 o'clock, I pushed an Android build. It's in the Play Store, it's beta version. I was not that lucky with iOS app. With OS 9 update, a lot of apps are sitting in there for approval, and mine happens to sit along with them, even though it's in the expedite process, it's review in 2 days. So, but I would still like to get all the feedback from you guys so that I can actually, what we are trying to do, we can actually achieve and make everybody's process easy. That way you guys don't have to worry about printing a card, stack of 50 cards, carrying them around, and make all the things connected. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, it's still in beta, and because there's a developer crowd, I'm sure you're going to be nice and not leave any reviews, one-star reviews, and just provide some feedback. All right, awesome. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Guy Bieber. He's the he's the director of strategy and innovation at Citrix.
Okay, good. Cool. Exciting. We already had a startup announcement today. That's pretty exciting. Is everyone ready to get their superpowers? I am. I want them. So I might need some help clicking, and what I'll do is I'll raise my hand. Awesome. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I've actually was in the defense industry for about 19 years, worked in the CTO office of General Dynamics. Woohoo! Yes, I love the Valley, worked in several places in the Valley. Recently I spent about 4 years in Silicon Valley working at Citrix, which I'm still at, but I'm now working in the Valley, so it's kind of cool. Click, please. Okay. ASU, go Devils. Why don't you just build this slide out? It might be easier. Okay. So I worked at Orbital Sciences in Chandler, and basically they made lots of different things, but the project I worked on made a maneuvering target for the Patriot out of nuclear missiles, decommissioned nukes. It was kind of weird. I worked at McDonnell Douglas Helicopter Company making fly-by-wire helicopters so they could do obstacle avoidance, and normally a helicopter pilot has to have 2 hands and 2 feet to control the aircraft. This is a single-hand control, and you could auto-fly at low terrain levels and things like that. So really interesting kind of real-time stuff there. At General Dynamics, and I did a lot of different things at General Dynamics, spent a lot of time there. In fact, I think we have a couple people in the crowd that are from General Dynamics. But I worked on the Distributed Common Ground Station, which is an intelligence surveillance system. So when you think about IoT today, the military has many sensors in the air, on the ground, etc., that they're taking the data from and turning that into an operational picture, right? And that's really IoT and big data together. And that's kind of what we used to do for the military. And then one of the more interesting programs I worked on was actually the Land Warrior system. So that's a wearable warfighting system. This is a system that had to survive underwater and mud and salt. Really crazy stuff, but it allowed a squad of soldiers to fight like 3 times the force, like a platoon. And so they could basically point their weapon and do a call for fire, they could do a call for medic, they could see where their friends were. They can do things like put digital chemical markers on buildings. So what the enemy used to do, or like to do, was they use a glow stick, they put it on the building, so if you want to ambush someone, you say the building was clear by putting a glow stick on it. Well, now they can do that digitally, there's no way for them to fake that out. So really interesting stuff there. And I got to work in DARPA, different labs and things like that. So I've seen the innovation on the lab side, on the DARPA side, etc. At Citrix, I have 2 jobs. So part of my job is anticipating the future. I am the lead author of our technology landscape document, which you can download at our website. Just go to trendsinnovation@citrix.com. And basically, that's a 5-year view of where tech is going. We kind of limit it to 5 years because that's what we can act upon typically. The second half of my job is actually fostering innovation in the company, both in our labs organization, in internal startups, and also external startups through our Startup Accelerator. So I've been very fortunate to have some cool opportunities. Next, please. So let's talk about powers. I was thinking about this thing, what superpowers do I want? And when I think about superpowers, one of the ones I think about is magic, right? Magic, these wizards can control things at a distance. They can move objects. They can make the world do what their will wants to. Now, I'm not sure if I like the interface of a wand and having to learn Latin. That's kind of hard for me. Maybe not something we should mimic when we're building this out. Next slide. Or maybe we want what this guy can do, right? He's genetically altered. So he has some superpowers like spiders. And he also has spidey sense. He can kind of sense what's going to happen. And being able to predict the future would be kind of cool. And then this guy, right? So this guy, basically super intelligent. It's kind of a hybrid intelligence system, right? You got Jarvis, you got Tony Stark. They work together and build this really cool Iron Man suit, which is what we like to call Land Warrior 2.0. Not quite. But in any case, it's a collaboration between computing and people to build something like that. Next slide. So go ahead and build up. So what superpowers do we really want? And so we'll talk about 4 today. We'll talk about the superpower of creation, being able to build, create anything, like Tony Stark. We'll talk a little bit about the superpower of prediction. Let's be Spider-Man and have some spidey sense and figure out what's coming and what we should do about it. Controlling our world, the ability like that wizard to basically control his environment, to control what is going on. And then also super intelligence, right? How computers and people can work together to do amazing things. Thanks. All right. So the first one, creation. I'll just do this. So this is absolutely the coolest time ever to be a maker, a builder, a developer of things, right? There is amazing tool sets that haven't been around in my lifetime. I used to look at how hard it was to do something as simple as maps, 15 years ago. That used to be the dominion of governments. It used to be only, use Esri, which is a very expensive product. Now you can drop in a web link to Google Maps and you can have any map in the world instantly. It's amazing. Yeah, I can build it out. I'll just talk to it. So we have some clicking problems we can work on. So the first thing you have is you have these great platforms. You have Android, you have iOS, you have Node.js. These are great technologies to build your dreams on, right? And you have basically the access of the compute of the world at your hands. Think about what that means. I mean, you can go, it used to be, if you wanted to be a web startup, there was a tremendous startup cost to build your data center. Now you can start for pennies for CPU hours and build up to be as big of a supercomputer as you want. In fact, companies like Autodesk, they have this idea of infinite compute. So there's the part of Autodesk you run on your desktop, and there's the part that they run in the cloud for you when you want to do a very difficult modeling or simulation. And they're starting to build that into their products. It's not just designing the product, it's now I can put it in a wind tunnel, I can see what the genome or the DNA folding is going to do, etc. And that's all by bursting supercomputing into the cloud. And that's a really interesting way to think of things. When you look at the tools available to you, there's a billion services. Go to programmableweb.com. There's a bunch of services out there. If you don't want to build it, you just use an API and follow it. Brilliant, right? If there isn't a service out there, you probably can find source code in GitHub that'll get you started on building your own. With IoT, we're turning hardware into software. I think Arduino has made hardware accessible to software people, right? Basic understanding of digital IOs and analog IOs, input and outputs, and basically putting that in a form factor that's easy for people to use is a tremendous empowering factor for engineers. And there's all sorts of great resources. I mean, we got Hackaday, which has all sorts of hacks. You get equipment sent to you immediately from SparkFun. We actually like Octable. I'm not really sure. It's a session later day. I'll plug it. But Octable is a really cool integration of everything platform. It's both about integrating services and things and people together. And that is a really powerful thing. I also highly recommend, if you're interested, IoT Phoenix is a great meetup group to learn more about IoT. We got crazy stuff like the robotic operating system, right? So there's groups that are trying to take all this technology and build you a platform like you do have for Android and other things for robotics. And that's accelerating very quickly right now. There's these tools that of learning that are available to you, right? If you don't have quite the superpower of creativity yet, you can get there pretty quick. Codecademy is brilliant. Coursera, you can do a nano degree in Android or iOS very quickly in under 6 months. You can do the free version, or you can get a degree and pay a little bit. And so that's pretty cool. If you just want to learn a little bit of something, there's a bit of Photoshop you don't understand, you go to Lynda and get the 3-minute segment on that one part of Photoshop you can have. Amazing amount of learning that's at your fingertips now, very inexpensively, is astounding. And then we have these great high-end tools. So you want to do anything machine learning, you got R, you got SciPy. Basically, you can run 100 different algorithms on the same data set and see which one works the best for you. As we're moving into mixed reality, we have the merging of Unity 3D, which is the gaming world, is merging with kind of the vision world. If you look at OpenCV, and that's creating some really interesting things in the mixed reality space. If you want to start your next programming language, use DNA. There's a genome compiler. You can basically look at DNA sequences that other people have put up. You can change the code. You can have it printed, and basically run a test. It's astounding that we can do these things, right? In the Phoenix area, we have a lot of great resources too. We have Tech Shop in Chandler. It's a great place to build things. We have, Gangplank in Chandler also. It's a great place to have your startup. HeatSync in Mesa. So there's a lot of assets locally that are available to you to basically build, connect, and do anything. And then you got great assets online. You want to build something physical model, Thingiverse. You can probably find a model that you can tweak very quickly. If you want to get that printed, you go to Shapeways, too close to the mic, and you can get that printed in many different materials. Or, could you please go back? Thank you. You could go and get PCBs printed very quickly for $49. You can get 3 PCBs printed if you're doing something in hardware, which, by the way, if someone can talk to Tech Shop and they can get some PCB printing, that would be awesome. I'd like to see it. And the best part is you get the capital to follow your journey, right? If you look at Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other assets that are out there, you can get free money to at least get started and do something. So you have the power of creation. You already have that superpower. Next slide. So prediction. What if we have that spidey sense? Go ahead. So one of the things when you're predicting things in the man-made world, you really have to predict the passion of man. Right? That's really what it is about. And we look to a couple things when we're doing our predictions. One is we look at investments in startups. So basically, we're looking at large pools of money that are targeted at things like IoT, etc. And the characteristic that has is it's a passion fit, so people self-select to be a startup. And there's many, many tries, right? I have many startups in a particular space, which means a high probability of success. And so we see after about 2 years, you're going to see startups actually maturing into products that are very successful. Next. Another area we looked at is prize-based research. So this is where you put an award out. And it's usually one of these big dreams, like going to the moon, driverless cars, those kinds of things. And there's a lot of organizations. DARPA does a lot of them. XPRIZE does a lot of them. And after that 4-year period, those things get to market. And basically, you start seeing that technology being converted into something that's going to happen and be commonplace for people. Another area we look at is exponential growth. We're notoriously bad at understanding what exponential growth enables. And one of the best guys in the world at going and saying, oh, when this happens, when you have this many exponential growth cycles, this is now possible, is Ray Kowalczyk. Very interesting guy. I highly recommend checking out Singularity University and his books and things like that. And then the other big area we look at is intersections. So intersections of technologies, right? There's a great book called The Medici Effect, which talks really about the Renaissance era. And how the Renaissance era started was the Medici family. They brought a bunch of different disciplines together and they said, hey, guys, go build something cool. And so when they crossed those disciplines, you started getting ideas that mixed for the first time. And when that happens, you get a lot of innovation. So that's kind of how we frame it. Next slide. So So I'm going to talk you through this one bottom to top. This one I usually take a little more time on, but this is kind of a summary of predictions. And so we talked earlier about where's the startup investment going. Well, startup investment is going in software, obviously, software eating the world kind of thing. Biotech, using huge investments in biotech. Illumina sequenced 200,000 genomes last year. The problem isn't any more sequencing the genomes, which it used to be. It's now crunching the data and figuring out what it means. That's the transition we're making. If you look at media and entertainment, movies used to be the big box office makers. Now it's gaming. And that gaming technology is now crossing back over to productivity software for mixed reality. And then life sciences, right? A lot of investment in healthcare, trying to make healthcare costs cheaper to help people live better. If you look at prize-based research, obviously we're going back to the moon, it's pretty interesting. The Tricorder X Prize is very interesting. That's trying to turn your cell phone into a doctor to help the people that don't have access to that kind of technology. The Global Learning Prize is trying to bring education to the other 6 billion people in the world. And the DARPA Grand Robotics Challenge. So we're all a little bit infatuated by driverless cars now, but that all came out of a DARPA Grand Challenge. And about 4 years after that, you now have a Tesla Model D car that self-drives on the freeway. You've got Google testing self-driving cars in Mountain View. You've got Daimler Chrysler doing trucking systems that are automated. And what people don't realize is that some of this robotic technology actually has been on farms for a long time. So the reason the roads look so neat when they're planting on the farm is that the tractor's actually doing that. Now they force the guy driving the tractor to turn it, but that's the way the technology works. Get a little echo. Then the robotics challenge, the interesting thing about that one is that was after the Fukushima nuclear accident. And they observed that if they could send someone in to shut a few valves off, they would have saved a lot of lives and a lot of the environment. And so the challenge, which just finished this year, they successfully ran the whole course that could have really reduced the impact of that event with their robotic systems. Now they're not ready for prime time. They use a lot of power. They're very expensive, but they're going to lower in cost very quickly. So in exponential growth, we look at compute. Everyone knows Moore's law. And we'll talk a little bit later about how we're jumping Moore's law. Biotech, the number of genome sequences is doubling every year. Knowledge is doubling every year and a half. Network traffic is doubling every year and a half. These are dramatic changes. 4 cycles go 4.5 years out, and you have a tremendous growth in these technology areas. Now, from an intersection standpoint, some of the intersections that interest us is the best machine learning company in the world, Google, went and bought 7 of the best robotic companies in the world. So that intersection of machine learning and robotics is going to drive something, right? And you're starting to see that in the driverless cars. You're seeing that in Project Wing and some other things coming. Biology and computing coming together. We're really building new compute architectures. You'll see this in Qualcomm chips and other chips we'll talk about. Healthcare and wearables. Continuous health learning. Why do I just go to the doctor and I get point check every 6 months? Why isn't he monitoring my condition the whole time? Why can't I know those kinds of things? So you have great stuff like Google's new contact lens that measures blood sugar from diabetes and things like that. So the wearables and healthcare are coming much closer together. And then the gaming tech and wearable tech coming together. So that's across the bottom. Across the top, we've kind of done these by year, big themes. Last year's big theme was wearables. I think that was the year that wearables started to basically climb up the curve of being very common. And it started really in Fitbit kind of stuff right initially. But if you look at what's happening this year, the sharing economy is getting big, right? You look at Uber is getting very big, Airbnb, Kiva for sharing money, Lending Club for sharing money. All these things are basically new platforms for us to share resources more efficiently. We're moving past just the Internet of Things into Mashable things. It's kind of like you have a service, but it doesn't have an API. No thanks, I'm going to go talk to someone else. It's getting that way with the Internet of Things. So we're going to start mashing more things together. Now, the combination of mashable things and wearable computing, we're becoming the most monitored species ever, right? We have all these sensors around us. And that's driving some privacy issues, and you're seeing some pushback. You look at what Apple and Android have done in the encryption of the software on their machines in lieu of what the government has asked them to do, and you're seeing a big pushback and a reinvention of what it means to have privacy. Healthcare, major cost reduction in healthcare. We're going to start prescribing hardware and software. We're starting to see processors dedicated to vision and hearing. It's going to be hard to find a dumb mic and a dumb camera pretty soon. I give that about 2 years. If you look at driverless cars, that is a revolution. That means cultures that couldn't afford a transit system now can just drop driverless cars in the street. It means that parking spaces in cities free up. It means that people that didn't have access to transportation now will have access. So it changes insurance, it changes businesses like cabs. It's a dramatic impact, and someone's going to monetize that. I would argue that Uber has monetized the platform for that, but they don't have the driverless vehicles. Augmented reality work experiences, kind of talked about that a little bit. Reinvention of small unit manufacturing. So we talked about customization, like products that we buy the generic product. Well, now you're going to buy a lot of products where they're customized for you because there's a little bit of printing that goes on the tail end of that. Or you're going to see small batch productions, things like you see on Etsy, now on a much larger scale because we're able to print more efficiently, more quickly, and more materials. And we've seen huge improvements in printing technology. Affiliate hybrid intelligence, that's really machines and computers working together. That's coming pretty quickly. The electric economy, more power generation that's distributed. Think about solar, better batteries to store that, better battery density, faster charging times. This free energy means a lot for people, especially if you combine free energy with robotics and compute. It unlocks some tremendous possibilities, and that's coming pretty quickly. Matternet is really about the delivery of things, breaking the 24-hour period of delivery of things, right? So I think all of the companies, Amazon's working on it, Google's working on it, they're trying to cut down that last bit of delivery to be a couple hours. And they're doing that with drones, they're doing that with driverless cars, they're trying to do that with robotics, and that's coming very quickly. Virtual corporations, we'll talk about that. And then, I think 2019 we're going to start seeing, that's 4 years after the DARPA Grand Challenge, we're going to start seeing more robotics in different roles. We're already seeing them in a lot of roles, I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then long term, we're going to start modifying our genomes, we're going to start, we're reverse engineering the brain already. There's 2 projects, one in Europe and one in the US, that in about 10 years should have a much more refined model of the brain, which will drive better CPUs and neuromorphic chips. That's kind of what they're working on. And so we're really getting to a superpowered and empowered individual deployment. So this is kind of a broad layout of how we see technology unfolding in the next few years. So you can go ahead and build this one out. So disruption is surprising the norm. This is happening across industries, right? You look at Amazon, disrupting retail. A great quote from one of the guys I work with. It's like, I only go to the store to find stuff I didn't know I needed. Because how many people have gone to Staples and found that they didn't have the one you wanted, and then went home and go, oh, I could have gotten it on Amazon for half the price, and it was there tomorrow. It happens all the time. Finance and VCs, right? Look at Lending Club. You can be a banker. You can get a loan. You do loans in an amount of $25 to anyone you want, and that's totally disrupting the banking industry. You look at Kickstarter and Indiegogo, those are disrupting the VC industry. So, crowdsourcing finance is having a big impact. Education. You look at Khan Academy, why teach to 50 students when you can teach to 6 million students? And you can have the best courseware provably because it's data-driven and knows what success is very quickly. Knowledge is free, but degrees are expensive. That's a real paradox. Okay? Transportation, right? We all know about Uber, driverless cars, healthcare, continuous healthcare monitoring, your phone is your doctor. I can't tell you how many apps I've seen come out recently, at least in the psychology realm, that are on it. You can basically get a doctor to talk to online, a psychologist. There's also doctor services for normal doctor services, when you take photos of whatever's hurting you, etc. And so access to doctors remotely, not going to a waiting room where everyone's sick, where you might get sicker. Telemedicine through your phone, tremendous access to healthcare that people don't have access to. And then work is changing. I mean, we're at about 30% freelancers in the country right now, predicted to be at 40% in 2020. That's amazing. That's an amazing number. And there's these big platforms that are enabling that. Upwork is the combination of Elance and Odesk. They're the 2 largest freelancing companies around. They clear about $1.2 billion in business a year, and they're growing pretty quickly. Freelancer is similar to that. Next. So what these all have in common, and I think Mark Andreessen kind of quotes it best, is software is eating the world, right? We're turning everything into something that can be mashable. And what's happening in this is a big business model change, right? So high-priced, low-quantity things are getting disrupted by low-priced, high-quantity things. Education, teaching one instructor, teaching one classroom versus Coursera teaching 1 million students. And these software platforms are enabling it. And this is market after market is getting disrupted this way. So control. What do we want to control? I want this superpower. I want control. So what will we control? Well, we're going to control everything. But so, someone mentioned earlier about smartphones. Look at the smartphone growth. We got 7.2 billion people on the planet. Most of those had analog phones by now. The actual, I think it's like 5 billion is the market penetration for analog phones. But right now we're at about 1.8 billion in market penetration of smartphones. And we're going to double that by 2020. And what that means to developing countries is that connects them to the families, that gives them access to education, that gives them access to banking, like microloans, that gives them access to healthcare, it gives them more security because they can report things. It is the biggest GDP multiplier for the growing world that's out there. And so when you think about building your apps, don't just think about building them for first world. Think about what you can do to help third world because they really need it, and this is a huge enabler. So that's just phones. How about things? So look at this chart. This is almost astonishing. Go ahead, one more clip. Today, we almost have as many things as we have smartphones, tablets, etc. And in 4 years, there's all sorts of projections. I put 20 billion on from the slides. This shows about 25 billion Internet of Things devices. Others have projected 50 billion. Lots of different predictions here on the right side about how big this market is, trillions according to Cisco. Whatever, it's big. It's a big market. And what this is the biggest expansion of IT ever. And it's a big expansion of IT to people that don't work in offices. One of the coolest systems I saw was a projection system that worked on a production line. So normally someone's putting stuff together, but this projects, hey, grab this part, put it here, do that, and if you do the wrong thing, it puts a little X over your hand or talks to you. And the guy doesn't have a computer, he doesn't log in, he doesn't do anything, he's just doing what the projection tells him. They achieve like an 82% increase in productivity and quality by adding that to a production line. It's amazing. It's amazing what it can do. And so this is a huge trend, and this is why IoT is very important. Next. So what does it mean to get to trillions? When will we get to a trillion? Well, if we had 1 trillion devices on the planet, it means for every 6 square feet of Earth that's above water, we would have 1 device. How fast will we get there? If we continue at the growth rate, the previous chart, the growth rate was 35% a year. If I did a conservative, say 30% CAGR, by 2030 we'll be at 1 trillion devices. This is the fusion of the physical and the virtual world. Right? Where computing used to be didn't matter. Like, it runs somewhere in the cloud, I don't care. But in this kind of world, yeah, the sensor that's on this pipeline that said there's a problem, its location is important. That light bulb that I want to turn on, its location is important. And the location of computing becomes hugely important. We're just starting to get there with our mobile phones and doing things with GPS and internet. Next. So what does this impact? This impacts a lot of things, right? So we talked about the expansion. We talked about location mattering. But it's also the end of data entry. I'm not going to have to guess anymore which part of my field is not getting enough water, or which part of my field needs more pesticides because it has an infection. I'm going to know. I'm going to know because I have sensors there, and I'm going to be able to save water. Look at the California drought. What kind of advance that can make in saving water and more efficient use of resources. And so we're going to connect everything. We're going to connect people, we're going to connect services, and we're going to connect devices. It's not, Internet of Things isn't just about devices, it's about connecting everything. And so this is going to drive a new decentralization of computing. We've centralized computing when you think about the cloud. I mean, our mobile phones are really the tip of an iceberg into the cloud. Turn your wireless network off for a day and see how often you pull your phone out of your pocket. Right? Probably not very often. But when that thing's connected to the network, boy, that can keep us occupied all the time. And so, but this is a decentralization of computing. We're pushing computing to the edge, right? Do I really want to send 60 frame per second camera feeds from every 2-cent camera that's in the world up to the cloud to be processed? No, I might want that sensor to look for license plates, or I might want that sensor to look for count people, or whatever, and I want to push that algorithm down to the edge. We've done this a lot in the military, mainly because we blow up all the networks and bring our own, and they're very expensive. So it's coming in the commercial realm. We're also moving to the world being the user interface, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but old paradigms of user interfaces we're still living with are really bad. And when you get to this kind of quantity, do you want to replace the batteries in 1 trillion devices? I haven't even done the calculation how long it would take 7.2 billion people to touch 1 trillion devices, but I'm guessing it's going to take way too long. So you can't replace batteries, they have to be disposable. You don't want to direct the environment, because now you got one of these things sitting in every 6 square feet of the planet, in theory. And so we're seeing a lot of movement towards IoT sensing that's very low power or self-power. And what this really does is it allows us to control or enclose real-world controllers. We can be so much more efficient in how we use resources. You look at what Nest does. It helps you with your house. It helps your house be a little more efficient in energy. What Nest wants to do in the back end is it wants to tell the electric company, hey, this neighborhood, they want the cooling here. I need to turn these 3 houses on. Do you want me to sequence them so this house goes on 5 minutes before this house, so this house to level the power grid? Every electron that you get in here right now is generated seconds ago, right? It's an on-demand network. There's no storage, right? They have to crank up the nuclear reactor or crank up the coal plant. What this does is allows them to level the power grid. And so it's a pretty amazing thing. Next. But we're going beyond Moore's, right? If you look at Moore's law, you look at like an i7 right now, you get a 4 to 8 core i7, right? It's not very powerful. We've been optimizing transistors for a while, right? And initially, I don't know, when my first desktop PC had a 100-watt power supply, and 250-watt power supply, and 450-watt power supply. It was more about getting more transistors and processing power than it was about energy efficiency. But what we're seeing now is a whole branch of decreasing power. You look at mobile phones, et cetera, that have really driven that. And now transistor per watt matters, right? How much does it cost you from a power standpoint? And when you get down to IoT, it's almost powerless, right? I don't want to have any power in there. On the top side, we're actually increasing parallelism, right? So, you look at a traditional CPU, it's 4 to 8 cores. You look at a GPU, it's 1,000 to 5,000 cores. So we're starting to run algorithms, there's GPU-hosted cloud service at Amazon and stuff. And you can actually run what used to take, thousands of CPUs to do, you can run on, a dozen GPUs. Because it's so parallel, it suits some of these algorithms much better. But that's just the first step, that's thousands, right? You look at the new neuromorphic chips that IBM and Qualcomm are building, and those things are basically a million neurons and 256 million connections. That's huge. And what this is driving is you're actually going to have an MPU processor in your phone. Qualcomm's already announced it. And that's going to do vision. It's going to do hearing in real time on your phone. DARPA did an experiment where they took this kind of architecture and they put a camera on top of the tower in Stanford. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to be able to recognize and track people in real time. They did that with this architecture at 63 milliwatts. It's astounding, right? So it's not just Moore's anymore, it's really curve jumping. And then you get into quantum computing, right? That's simultaneous computing. A qubit can compute 1 million calculations at once. I can't even understand it myself. So the thing to notice here, though, is what we're getting towards is the brain. If you look at the brain, we're about 100 billion neurons, right? Remember that other neuromorphic chip? It's 1 million, right? It's a quadrillion connections. 1 million billion connections. Massive. And it's 87 million times more power efficient than today's CPUs. So that's why these architectures of parallelism are becoming really important. Go ahead, Bud. So, we think that the neuromorphic chips are really the death of dumb cameras. You're going to start seeing those chips basically embedded into that. Intel RealSense is here. They're already doing depth cameras and things like that. And we're also going to break cryptography in the next 10 years with quantum computing, if that matures to a level. And both Google and Microsoft are making massive investments, besides the government making massive investments. So we've seen an amazing change in computing, right? We have what we call go-to computing. I have to go to the mainframe, I have to go to my desk. It's at a fixed location, I have to go there. We had that for a while. Then we had luggable computing. I can take my laptop with me, I'm going to carry a bag. Or now I've got an iPad, it's kind of awkward to carry. And then we get what I call intimate computing, right? We've got the phone in our pocket that buzzes and knows where we're at, knows our calorie content, all that kind of stuff. And wearables, right? It's very close. It's my personal computer. I don't share it with anyone. And we're getting to immersive computing. That's what IoT does. It surrounds us with computers. And if you look at mixed reality, it surrounds digital, a reflection of computers into our reality. And that's immersive computing. And then what's coming after that, I believe, is really accommodative computing. That's robotics and AI. Robotics that can coexist with this AI that helps us be more effective. Next slide. So, robotics are a long dream of mankind. And it seems like the distance between something being shown in science fiction and something being built in the real life has been shortened. In fact, it has. And what people don't realize is the robots are already here, they're just not widely distributed. right? So we already talked about the DARPA Grand Challenge. That's the DARPA robot. Mercedes announced the driverless car. They drove it to CES this year. That's Baxter. It's a $25,000 robot that you teach by moving its arms, and it sees what you're doing, and it can replicate that and do part pick and place. And they're building ones that do more things. That's Ozbot. I'm sure I wrong. On the right-hand side, it's being tested in Lowe's right now. At night, it inventories the store. It goes down the aisles, takes pictures, looks at all the UPC codes. It can tell how many items, is the stock shelf full or empty. And then basically, if you come in the store, you can speak any language to it. You can show it an item, and it'll lead you to it. That's testing in Lowe's in California right now. People don't realize agriculture has had a lot of robotics automation already in it. That's a little security bot that runs around Microsoft that looks for intruders. We talked about Project Wing and the Amazon project. Kiva, right? Getting rid of a lot of the warehousing efforts. The reason your Prime stuff shows up in a day is because these robots are so efficient at moving product around a warehouse, right? So they're already here, they're just not widely distributed. And this scale of computing is going to necessitate a change in how we interact with computers, right? I can't have old models. Go ahead and click. So this is a rock concert, right? Imagine if, I don't know, has anyone done DMX lighting? It's pretty cool. Real-time DMX feed, you can control the modes of lights and pots and all sorts of stuff. But in any case, you don't control things one at a time. You don't have a remote for every one of those lights, right? They used to have people that stood on the lights and moved them independently. We don't do that anymore. And we have this model in our head where we have a remote for everything, right? We all hate that. That's the wand. That's the wizard, except he has a wand for everything that he wants to do. And now we move to the model when you look at IoT these days, you load an app for every device, for Philips Hue, for whatever. So I have an app for everything. But where we're really going is one person should access everything. Computers need to accommodate us instead of us them. Can you click again? So this is a timeline of user interfaces. We've been stuck with the keyboard since 1970, and the mouse since 1984. Recent stuff, you look at multi-touch, you look at directional voice, there's even brain interfaces. The modem's been doing a really good job, and the Mises has been doing a good job. And mixed reality, and what that kind of does. And go, click again. And so what we're moving is to natural user interaction. We used to have to adapt to the computer. I used to have to punch cards and stick it in there. Then I used to have to learn how to type. And I have to learn how to move the mouse. And now we're moving to computers that adapt to us. And the other thing is we're moving to computers that understand us. We should have an autism scale for our phones. How many times has your phone gone off in a meeting that was very important, you didn't want it to, or you got an alert? Why does it know that you're in a meeting, you're talking, don't interrupt me right now, kind of thing? And so computing actually is a lot like an autistic child. They're just not aware of what's going on. And adding context into computing is a huge thing. But I'll tell you from a military standpoint, what we found out is if you have thousands of sensors, those individual sensors don't give you the big picture. You have to put the data together, and that's how you get an operational picture and you understand what's going on. We've done that on the military side. We haven't done the equivalent of that on the consumer or private side. And that's, I think, coming in some of the IoT platforms that you see out there. Next. So this is really cool. So this is basically Microsoft HoloLens, right? I call this the death of displays. And the reason I say that is because I have an infinite display with this. I have an infinitely mappable display. I have a display I can map my stuff into, your stuff into, and you could be in another part of the world. I can manipulate objects in space. Amazing. I think Microsoft is doing a lot of amazing work here. Go ahead and click through. And you're seeing investments by all sorts of companies. Facebook with Oculus Rift, Google with Cardboard, Sony with PlayStation VR, Microsoft with HoloLens. Apple even bought a VR company recently. And then Magic Leap. And the cool thing Magic Leap, if you haven't heard of Magic Leap, what it does, they're a stealth startup right now. They're a stealth startup that got $200 million in investment from Google. That's insane. So what their system does, unlike Microsoft HoloLens that projects an advisor, it puts laser on your eyeball. We actually invested in a company when I worked for GE called Microvision that did that. But their trick, and the cool trick is the problem with projection, anyone knows, is you can't overcome ambient light. I can't get darker than the ambient light. Well, they're doing something similar to what noise canceling does in a headset. They're doing light canceling. So they can get darker blacks, and they can do it right in your eye. And that's coming. So imagine mixed reality like that, what that would mean. And so what does the growth of that look like? It's predicted to be 3 million in 2016 and 20 million in 2020. This is going to be as disruptive as mobile. And it's on a rapid growth curve. There's just a few things that need to get in place. You need a little better display technology, and you need Microsoft and others to figure out what it means when I have something mapped in virtual reality like this water bottle, and then this table is in here as a floating space. You know, what are the rules of mixed reality? What are the rules of interaction? Right? There's no keyboard in this space. It needs to know where I'm looking. It needs to know what I'm pointing at. It needs to know what I'm physically or mentally grabbing. And this is not just mixed reality, right? I've got Internet of Things around me. I want to be able to point at that light and have it do something, or point at the TV. Point at the TV. When I want someone's attention, I say, I say or point, look at them and say something, right? Why can't I look at and say something to anything in my home and have it do what it needs to do? You can do that with this kind of technology. So the last superpower, that's super intelligence. I don't know what super intelligence, but so how can we have superhuman performance in a complex infotoxicated world? So we came up with this term called infotoxicated. And what this really has to do is the fact that information is doubling every year and a half. What that means is if you start a 4-year degree, at the end of that degree, you need to know 8 times as much as when you started. That's a losing game. Doctors can't keep up. Do you think your doctor knows the best medical care? This is why we're trying to adapt technology to handle the information load that we have. We can't basically consume it. Now that thing we talked about, mixed reality, that helps because our biggest bandwidth is actual spatial memory. So if you look at every study, 2 monitors is better than 1. You look at memory champions that memorize lists of thousands of things. They're doing it all with a visual walkthrough. They're putting objects in and they're basically walking through a visual space. That is our highest bandwidth information interface. Yet woefully underutilized, especially when you're in a smartphone. It's like a 4-inch display, right? It's just nothing there. So how can we help? We can do this with a little help from our AI. Probably with a little help from our friends, right? And keep up with their competition. They could come in 2 days a week and no one would ever catch up. That's how powerful the flow concept is, right? So there's a whole group, Flow Genome Project, check it out, it's pretty cool, that talks about that. An example, I'll give you a real example in the military. So the military, they were doing sniper training. And what they did, they found that flow state is characterized by 2 things. Your inner critic turns off and you lose track of time. I lost track of time. And those are things that you can actually deactivate by doing magnetic stimulation in front of the brain. And so what they did is they brought different snipers through training and they magnetically deactivated this part of the brain. And the snipers that were deactivated basically learned 200 times or twice as fast as the ones that weren't. So it's very powerful. What if you can learn 3 times as much information, this world of information? What if you could process information 3 times as fast? Well, there's tools for that, right? You can listen to an audiobook at 3 times rate. You can listen to a YouTube broadcast at 3 times rate. But why doesn't the system adapt to my consumption rate, right? Why doesn't it listen and understand basically that, hey, I'm overloaded now, we need to slow down, or hey, he's understanding this, let's go faster. That kind of technology we could build into here and really make people much more productive, right? What if the system could understand and help me manage my time? What if it could help me, use Podomo techniques, or like a pitcher, when a pitcher hits a certain amount of pitches in a game, they pull them out, right? Well, a Stanford study found that if you work over 50 hours, your productivity drops off dramatically to 50. At 55, you're not benefiting yourself at all. That's one Stanford study. What if it could tell us when our mood, we need to do something to adjust our mood, our EQ, right? Software could do that if the computing is aware. It's contextually aware and aware of me. This could be an amazing multiplier of what you're able to do. Next slide. So what do we have today currently? We have a disembodied voice. Pick your one of choice: Siri, Google, Cortana, etc. But what we really want Jarvis, right? We want something that amplifies us. It's an executive assistant. It's a coach. It's a colleague. It's a confidant, and it can do things for us and make us more effective. And so what do we need to get there? Next slide. Well, this is kind of a green field, right? We're starting to do some work. Apple or IBM opened up their Watson platform, and they're starting to do some really interesting things with healthcare to help doctors deal with that information workload problem. They're doing the same thing for lawyers. Case law is huge. It's really hard to understand. And then we're seeing other technologies, like DARPA is building systems that understand how to finish your code. It's not just code complete, it's like, I intend to do this. Oh, here, is this what you meant? Kind of thing, right? And they're actually being very successful at it. And there's companies like Viv that are trying to make a really good personal assistant. They're trying to make Jarvis essentially. And so there's a lot of people working on this. I would say this is one of the weakest areas, one of the areas that, where there's problems, there's opportunity. Next slide. So we talked about a couple of superpowers today. We talked about creation. You guys already have the power of creation. Prediction. We talked about how to predict and some of the things that we think are coming. Control. Start thinking about, I'm not just writing an app for a phone, I'm writing an app that runs on a phone that is in an environment that has IoT devices and other things. I'm really building a behavior based on a place I'm at, and I'm participating in a place that I'm at. That's a much different way to look at your app. It's outside the phone looking at your app. And then super intelligence. How can we build more machine learning, more AI into our products? Next slide. So my challenge to you: think differently, do the impossible, and shock everyone. I think Phoenix is have you been in Silicon Valley and here? Phoenix is a tremendous hub. We probably do more silicon design between Microchip, Intel, and Freescale out here than they do in Silicon Valley. I think this is the perfect place for IoT startups and mobile startups. And it's an exciting time. Next one. So with that, I'll open up, if we have time, to any questions.
Yeah, just I want to know about your newsletter. I wanted to ask about where you publish like a regular newsletter. I think you mentioned at the beginning of your talk.
Well, I do a once-a-year technology landscape. So if you go to citrix.com, on the bottom there's a link that says Trends in Innovation. When you go to that site, it'll be the first link. It's our technology landscape. We publish it once a year. We do other articles and things like that, but that's my main document that I publish.
To meet the, over here, I guess I should stand. To meet the incredible future you painted, I've heard in the past that our programming languages need to change to foster more parallelism and to make use of the processors in different ways. So do you see a change in how computer science education needs to work in order to really develop products that's in this space?
So, good question. I don't know if I have a great answer, but I'll give it a shot. So I think that parallelism is very important in things like machine learning, right? Where I can break data sets down and do, when you think about machine learning right now, it's basically counting. And machine learning is finding correlation, not causation, right? So it's saying there's this probability that these 10 factors together, 80% probability that means that this event is going to happen. And that's one area where parallelism is very important. Right? We're seeing a lot of things built just, you look at Hadoop and things like that. They're built to work that way. Normal programming language, I do think it's going to be a big challenge. Like, take something written in OpenCV that runs on a serial CPU and now put it on a neuromorphic chip. That's a real challenge, right? Is there a way to break down the image build? So again, how do I break down that vision problem? So I do think there's some innovation to happen there, and it's going to be really exciting when it does. Cool. Other questions? Sure. Yeah, so they're working on quantum computing. So Google, D-Wave was one of the vendors that actually made a quantum computer. Google bought one of them, and they're trying to build their own, and Microsoft is trying to build their own. But the kind of problem that those computers can solve better than anything else is actually breaking cryptography. And so it's going to be interesting. There's other uses. Again, that's a whole new crazy field, right? How do you write an algorithm for something that calculates a million things at once? I don't even understand it. But what I do know is that it's very good at breaking cryptography. And so that's going to, when that matures, and someone has access to those computers, the cryptography we have today is going to be easily broken. And that's a real challenge.
Okay, hi, I've got a question related to Internet of Things and how all that is going. How do we secure all of that stuff? When you talk about embedded devices, for example, like shell shock, you can have attacks like shell shock and all sorts of other stuff that no one ever envisioned at the time. And you have one device every 6 square feet, roughly, and they all get hacked. And then how do we deal with that?
So I think security systems are moving more to operate like our immune system, right? So You know, it used to be you'd have a occasional security check, i.e. I logged in my password. What DARPA has been working on is something called active authentication. And what that does is it looks at you the whole time, right? It's looking at how you type, how you move, how you talk, to be sure that it's still you. And so translating that to IoT, what we're going to do is we're going to look at devices and say, are they behaving in a way that doesn't make sense, right? You're going to need basically an immune system for that kind of world. And I think we're going to see micro-isolation of those pieces. I think we're already doing some of that in OctaBlue. We can actually isolate pieces. On the low-cost, low-power processors, there isn't a lot of good cryptography, so the cryptography starts to happen at the gateway, right? And you know, obviously, depending on the asset, if it's a light bulb and it's a short range, you're probably not too worried about it. And at the gateway, you've kind of now locked it down. But you know, some of the technologies are pretty loosey-goosey down on the device. And so, definitely an area that we need to improve. Were there other questions? How are we doing on time?
Is there any software that can in real time modify the behavior of teenagers?
You know, I tried to adapt the shock collar for my dog for my kids, and I got in trouble. So I'm not qualified to answer them. But I do think, you know, talking about behavior modification, like I said, there's a lot of apps that now can look at your mood, and they can, you know, hook you up to people to help you. They're finding more success actually sometimes in apps than they are in antidepressants and things like that. So I do think there is a way to, if they use them, if they're willing to help modify behavior.
Yes, hi, thanks for being here. And I wanted to tag on to what you were just saying. When you're going to the military and they're using a part of the brain to make the snipers more effective. Can you address that a bit more, what they're doing? What application is that? When you were saying with the snipers, and that you're using, or from what I was understanding, using a part of their brain that is devoid of something?
Yeah, so in your frontal lobe, there's an area that they've located that has to do with your sense of time. And there's an area that they have to do, which is your kind of inner critic. You know, whenever you're doing something, it's like, hey, you're screwing up, right? And by magnetically stimulating those areas, they can basically deactivate. And so they basically put a thing on their head that does magnetic pulse. And when they do that, they actually learn faster, which is an interesting thing when you think about it. You know, if I'm not feeling uptight about, boy, you know, that's the hardest thing about learning, I think, is getting past the suckage, right? The first part where you're really bad at something, and then you get, oh, I'm kind of okay, I think I'll be all right? That first part is really hard.
Hi, I've really enjoyed your talk so far. But one thing that you haven't addressed, and this goes into the behavioral component, is that we really need to emotionally resonate with our end users to be an effective device. And what are your thoughts on how we can transform user interface from something that's visual to something that's more cognitive and emotional?
So there's a cool company called Humanize, and what they do is they have a IoT badge. And this badge, it has a mic in it, and it has temperature sensors and things like that. And what they try to do, I just can't get the mics here. What they try to do is they try and look at social interaction. So they look, when you're in a meeting, are you talking? Who are you with in that meeting, right? Because the badge is all can identify. They look at, you know, is there stress in your voice? So one of the easiest ways to tell mood, you know, you got temperature, you got pulse, that's an indicator. Voice, you do a lot with voice quality. So there's a lot of things that you can tell mood. I think most apps are very mood unaware, right? I would love my app to go, oh, you've had a bad day, you know, put on some John Denver or something, you know, I'm gonna go sit on the patio, right? And it's easy to figure that out. You're starting to see like the new version of Siri, I noticed, is, oh, I'm suggesting these apps because you normally run this app at this time, right? And so, again, that's a machine learning problem. It's a small machine learning problem, right? You're collecting events and basically trying to do what you think is the behavior that's most beneficial. But I would love to see a mood engine developed. So if anyone gets that worked out, I'd love to see it. Okay, one more question?
Hey Guy, I love your presentation. I love how you have a big picture and you're kind of looking into the future. what feeds do you use? Where do you go to try to keep up with everything? Are there a few that have a lot of information, or you have to? Are you just all over the internet collecting this information? It's a lot for one person to know. Can you give us some tips on where to look?
Yeah, so I'll give you some cheats and tricks. One, I look at on a daily basis pretty much technology review. So that's MIT Technology Review, Singularity University, Fast Company. See a lot of stuff on Fast Company, Business Insider. So those are sources that I'll look at on a common basis. Another good thing to do is follow people we like on Twitter and watch a Twitter feed. Another technique that is really helpful, if you suspect, like you have an inkling, you go, I think X is going to break out this year. What you can use, you can use Google, right? So Google has Google Alerts, and you can put in whatever keywords you want, and it'll build up a list that it sends you once a week of anything it found on the internet relative to that topic. Okay. Read a lot of books. Look for books that are interesting in topics, but I don't really read them. I cheat. I use audiobooks and I listen to it at 3 times speed. So anything you can do to increase your information throughput, tremendously helpful, right? So if you can process information 3 times faster than your peers, it's an advantage. And I say seek that advantage. So those are some of the hacks. Some other hacks, Get Abstract is great. So you can Get Abstract. If you're not sure you want a book, you can go look at the abstract and see is it any good. If you like that, the next step. So that's if you want to spend 5 minutes finding out if you want to read a book. If you want to spend an hour because you think that's interesting, look for talks by the author on YouTube. Google Talks is a lot of them. And you can get the essence of a book in an hour. Okay, now if you find that that's really useful and you want more, audiobook. Don't use written. The other cool thing about audiobooks, at least I like, is I can take notes while I'm listening to it. So on my phone I can take notes and things like that. So those are some of the hacks that I use. And then, the other thing I do is all those news articles, like trying to write a document like this, I collect links. So those resources I drop into folders on various topic areas, and I try and piece together, based on the evidence I see, what's really happening. So that's the best hacks I can give you at this point. Hopefully it helps. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much. There were so many wow moments in that, right? I mean, I'm super excited. So let's, I'm super excited for the day as well. So let's get to the sessions and have some fun. Thank you.
So now is the hour to sleep, right? So you're in the fireside chat with 3 awesome women in the valley, from the valley. Francine, Anila, and Anjali, in that order. And we'll get started. So this is the fireside chat with them. First of all, I want to congratulate Anjali on the awesome launch of the film.
I didn't come in until lunchtime. So could you, and maybe some other people didn't either. So could you explain Trill?
Sure. So Trill is a digital business card, and it's a clever one, not like you just scan or take a picture and use it. In this era, we are still carrying we're still carrying the paper cards with us. We don't even carry credit cards with us nowadays.
Anybody remember Bump?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Next Gen Bump.
Thank you for saying right to the point. You don't have to do the bump. All you have to do is just tap and fill your card. Trill is musical note. We are trying to make it beautiful, but at the same time use the technology to transfer it. So we actually use sound waves to transfer the business card from one phone to another. It has a personal touch. You can give it to people around you. It's not like you're broadcasting to the entire world. Sound has the capability that whoever is listening will get it. And also, business cards so far what they are doing is like one solution to every need kind, which actually in real life doesn't fit it. Every person has a different aspect. They have a business side, they have a personal side, they have a hobby side, or they have some other side going on. You don't want to be giving your business card or all of your information tagged into one thing and going on giving it to your hiker group. They'll be like, who are you? So I thought that, when I use it, I want to extend my personality, my brand, or my whatever motto I have going on at that time. So more personalization, more selective groups, you control the information, you have context on it. Actually, you can write notes and tags and put them all in there, and you don't ever have to remember, oh, is this person or that person after some time. And best of all, if they change any information, you are synced up, you are up to date, so you don't have to worry that I gave card to an important person 2 days ago, now I'm changing some stuff. Oh, would she be knowing that I've changed stuff? You're automatically in synced up, so please sign up for betas, iPhone users and Android users. It's available in the Play Store. It is still a beta. We welcome your input so that we can make this all very easy. We don't have to think about just a business card all the time, how to manage and worry about it. We'd like to help and make it a better place.
25 years in marketing. Get Trill.
So one question I have is, so I saw the presentation, I've seen it demoed before, and so if I am actually trilling to somebody, can I say that? Trilling to somebody?
Yes.
Okay, so
Or giving somebody a trill.
giving somebody a trill. Okay.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Take me somewhere else. Okay. So can you have two people listening on the two different devices and actually getting your contact information, or no?
Yes, you can. It is like, you are in a group. How do you exchange your business cards? You have a group of people having conversation and then you hand them over. So whoever is listening to you would get this information, get this card, and the user, whoever received, has the control. They can say, yes, I want this card, or no, I don't want this card. Whoever is not listening, let's say the front audience is listening and the back guys are a little toned out. They're not listening, so they don't get it. So if they're listening, they get it. That is the concept of handing a personal business card. This is how I try to.
So the phone has to be listening?
Yes.
And so the app has to be on for it to be listening?
Yes. So that means you're attentive, you want the card.
So it's both parties are engaged.
Engaged. That's how you give a business card. You don't drop when somebody's not looking, right? You make that eye contact and you give it. So
There's a network effect. In other
Yes.
words, somebody downloads it and tells somebody else, I can't give you my card if you don't have it, so then this is how she'll get rich.
So does that mean you could stick your microphone up to your cell phone and during a WebEx conference and let everybody that's logged in hear it?
I haven't tried that, but I don't
Great
see.
idea.
Yeah, I don't see why you can't do that.
Thanks,
If
Bill.
you have this
Do you have any
information,
idea
go
for
ahead.
it yet?
Not yet, building it. And one more upcoming feature is, I couldn't get time to push it last night. It is all complete, but discovering your friends. You're going to this Salesforce Dream Conference or here, Phoenix Mobile Festival. You come here, I got so many people asking me, hey, you have this meetup going and I'm looking for so-and-so person. I want an iPhone developer, I want a web developer. Where do I find them? So with my app, you select which place you're going and where. It will pull up all the people who are coming in and will tell you whatever they have entered, designation. And it is up to you to trill to them. Make the networking happen and trill to them. It's not like you're stalking on the internet and trying to find and send some stuff. So it is as real as you want it to be and as helpful.
Well, if people are going to a meeting, can you notify them that other Trill people are there so they know that it's available?
I think so. You should be able to tweet about it and say, hey, use this app and find other.
You're talking about
Or
it
is
in the
that
app?
within the app?
Within the app.
And
Future feature.
Yes, thank you for the feedback. I'm going to put it
did
in.
you take photos of your facial photo with your business card?
Whatever you want to go on the business card. You want
You
your
take a
company
selfie
logo?
and
Yes.
update once a week or so?
Yes, if you want it.
Only if
yeah,
you
yeah,
want
yeah.
to.
Yeah, if you want that, you can do it. No, nothing is stopping. That is the beauty of it. You change every day. If you want it, you change every day. If you want just the same thing every day, it will be the same.
It's me
Baghdad, is that the developer name?
What is
Meet Baghdad, what's the developer's name?
He's on the store, I think.
You're on the iPhone or Android?
Android?
Android, can you please search by Trill Cards and you'll see a red bird.
Trill Cards.
Yeah,
She's the developer.
Yeah, Anjali. Yeah, I did.
Anjali is the developer.
Clearly, Google SEO has to catch up. It just got released today.
Yes.
This is, be the first on your block.
Or two, so say for instance, I want to send one to Matt.
Yes.
But someone else is listening, do they get it too, or do I get to choose if I only send it to Matt?
Right now, whoever is listening can get it, but it can be fine-tuned. We are in beta. We are evaluating. The technology right now is, if you listen, it's like we are having conversation. Whoever listens will listen.
I like the aspect of you can have multiple facets. So I'm a CTO, I'm also an advisor, I'm also an investor.
And a mom.
And a mom, yes, I forgot about that. And that. So
See, someone always says about a woman.
I'm a dad. I'm a dad.
Okay, good. Okay.
I'm a dad. My son's going to be here, I think, pretty soon.
Okay.
So it's great, like when you come in here, I'm a developer, so when I come in here, I can take on my developer persona and I walk around. When I saw somebody over there talking about a very cool technology, I took out my investor persona, and I was like, okay, I'm an investor, this is a card I want to exchange with you. That's pretty cool, like you can put on your different personas in there and tell your story, share that.
Well, in my case, I play on a lot of different teams, and so I can go to a conference as, you know, Francine at Zito, and I can go to a conference as Francine at Stealth Mode. I love this idea.
I personally would use it for my everything I do.
And it's very cool to have something launch like this at this conference. It takes a lot of guts.
And I did it in 1.5 months.
Okay, she did it.
So,
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with your passion too. Because if you're in a corporate world, you just kind of go, well, you know, I don't own this, and move on. But I find myself going, okay, well, I enjoyed that, and then I explain it to my girlfriend, and she goes, what the hell are you thinking? And then once she understood what my passion was, she go, oh, okay, I can see that now. Okay, go ahead and do your thing. I'll go find something else to do.
Wow, that's a good, that girlfriend's a keeper. Girlfriend.
speaking of that, so a couple of questions come to my mind. So one of the persons asked about, oh, I have an idea, I want to do it. Questions are, do I do it myself, or can I do it myself versus go find a partner? How would I go about doing that?
Yeah, I'm a single founder. I'm looking for that answer too.
It's a very difficult answer because the easy answer is you really need a partner. It's very hard to do something by yourself, but the other answer is if you get the wrong partner, it can mess you up so badly that it can force your business to not succeed. So, you know, you need the right partner, and if you don't have the right partner, you can't just go, like I've always wondered about this site, Founder Dating, you know, that matches founders to each other, like, yeah, or Startup Weekend also. I always have a problem with those because they oversimplify the process of what it's like to work with someone else in a time of great intensity, you know, very, very closely, because that person who is your co-founder is your work spouse, so to speak.
So that brings in.
It's yours. Just it's your work spouse, but without the love. So there's not even a ground, you know.
That's right. There's not even an emotional connection. Exactly. And that's I mean, I've seen so many companies founder on the founders, you know, the founders, and in fact, you know, in all the accelerators in Silicon Valley, that's one of the things people are most concerned about when they fund one of these companies is, will the founders stay together?
So speaking of that, should I be able to start a company with my spouse or with my brother or with a family?
No, it's a very short answer.
There's a lot of complexities. One is, do you want?
Oh, you're so nice.
I don't have a brother.
You do put your marriage at risk. You do put that relationship at risk, you know, and I say relationships are more important sometimes, so I would say. It's like when my husband tried to teach me how to swim. We have to end that right away.
Or drive for that matter, never teach someone.
All right, let me just say that there is an entire industry built up around counseling family businesses.
Yeah.
Because it is difficult. It can be done. You know, obviously Heidi and Brad Jenninga did it in this community. And there are business partnerships and social partnerships or family partnerships that really work well. But you've got to take a really careful look at it, as you did, you know, Angelique, because sometimes it doesn't work.
I've heard it's more difficult often to get funding because they're more likely that they're going to split for other reasons and that kind of thing.
That is what all the VCs and the angels in Silicon Valley, some of them won't fund couples. Dave McClure, who is my, lightning rod for someone who'll do anything. He'll fund them, but he's really careful about doing it, and it is harder to get funding.
It's just high risk. Higher
Right.
risk.
And financially, you're putting all your eggs in the same basket.
Yeah, speaking of that, is there a higher risk of a solo person versus somebody with a team? I keep hearing from the VCs that they want to see teams as opposed to
Well,
guys.
that's because of this thing called the bus test. Like, if you got hit by a bus and you were a solo person, and we had this conversation over lunch, if you got hit by a bus, and you're the solo person, and you don't have a team behind you, would the company last? And we had this problem in this community last year because Chris Stifler, a very, very well-respected entrepreneur in the community, started a company called Vicinity Health. And he was the solo founder, and very unfortunately, he died. And his wife and I and a couple of other people tried to keep the company alive and tried to push it forward without him. But he had all the IP in his head, he had all the vision in his head, he had so much in his head, we couldn't do it. So, that's why they don't like solo founders. It is the bus test.
Here's how I look at it. When an investor invests in a company, or at least they're considering investment, they look at the idea, they look at the market, the opportunity, then they look at the team. That's the big component of, is your idea, does it have higher chance for success, right? And the team is going to be your cross-discipline assets of people who do different functions in your company, right? So I don't just look at it as a founder needing a partner. That's all important, but from a business, what's going to make the business successful? And there's very few people who are genius at everything, right? So I'm definitely on the tech side. I know I need a partner, and the co-founder, I'm the co-founder, so my founder in Iris, she's the business, and she also represents our user and knows the in and out of the domain we are in, which is PR. So that's a good, and we are a tech company, so that's a good partnership, right? We've got product and tech, we've got the business and the domain. So I would, when you look at how you start a company, look at areas you're strong at, look at areas you're not strong at, and go find the best person you can hire who's smarter than you, who can get it done. And they become your partner, and figure out their value and the worth to the idea. So you figure out if it's a founding arrangement, if it's an employee arrangement, and those are all good conversations to be had too on how you found your team.
The thing that does is it cuts out a lot of the main problems of digital advertising, which are fraud and lack of viewability. Lack of viewability means that people run ads that are run on top of ads. How many of you know anything about mobile advertising? Okay, but it's very complicated. Digital advertising in and of itself was very complicated. When I started in advertising, which was during the Madman era, a publisher took an advertiser to lunch, told him the editorial calendar, and said the full page costs $5,000, so, you know, something like that. And they shook hands, and the ad was sold. Digital advertising changed all that because now you had ad tech, the automation of the process. No publisher meets an advertiser anymore. You know, an algorithm meets an algorithm. And then another algorithm steps in and says, well, let me see if you're targeting the right people here. So we'll just put another algorithm in here. Well, let me see how many times this ad has been shown. So we'll just put in another algorithm to see that. Well, then we'll put another algorithm in anyway. The long and short of it is, there's like, in microseconds, there are like, you know, 10 intermediaries at least between advertiser and publisher doing things like ad serving, analytics, data analysis, targeting, all of that. And what happens when things happen so fast is a lot of stuff goes wrong. Like media buyers were buying ads and they didn't know where those ads were even appearing. They would be like, okay, I'm buying anything that costs, you know, 25 cents a CPM, which is cost per meal, cost per thousand. You know, anything I can buy for this price. So you might be, you know, for argument's sake, Pampers, and you end up on a porn site because the porn site just was selling for the price that you specified in your budget, and the algorithm doesn't know a porn site from a mommy blog. So there you have it. So that was where digital advertising was before we went mobile. After we went mobile, it got even worse because in the beginning of mobile, nobody knew how to advertise to mobile. And so everybody was selling mobile ads for cheap, which meant that mobile properties were not being developed the way they should have been developed. Well, as of, and this is Q2 of 2015, everyone figured it out. There is no desktop advertising anymore. Everyone has moved to mobile. And there are no banner ads anymore. Everyone has moved to video. So now what we do, video is much harder to serve than banner ads. And video has to be recompiled for every platform and sometimes for every different phone manufacturers. So that's another one of those hideous situations that emerged that was still true 2 weeks ago. Okay, so how do you know what to do if you're an advertiser? Well, you want to develop for iOS. Why? Because Android has the traffic, but iOS, the people have the money. So you're stuck. If you want to reach millions and millions and millions of people, you've got to develop for Android, which is another issue in and of itself because Samsung's Android is not like Google's Android, is not like HTC's Android, and there's just so many different kinds of Android. And then you have iOS, where you have a much more complicated process for getting something accepted. So the other thing that's happened very recently is people have discovered that most people on mobile phones don't really use web browsers, they use apps. And so the question is, how do you get an ad onto or into an app? And if you do, I hope you're not mobile app developers thinking to monetize through advertising, because this is going to be, if you are, this is going to be a very depressing talk for you. Because at this point, I don't even see how it's possible to do. And I actually don't even see how it's possible to do for like The Verge or TechCrunch. Some of these people, after what's happened in the last couple of weeks, I don't even know how they're going to survive. But anyway, as of Q2, there were 4 categories of apps that had big loyalty. There were news apps, entertainment apps, games, and social media. Okay, so you know who they are. You know, it's basically Facebook and whatever video game du jour is popular. You know, it was Angry Birds and now it's something else. And the rest is YouTube or Vimeo or, you know, whatever video people are using. So other apps are downloaded and discarded. They're downloaded and discarded within days. So there's massive numbers about how many apps have been downloaded and how many apps are out there, but you can't be misled by them, because most of those apps don't stay on people's phones very long, and even if they are, they're not visited. There are only certain apps that are visited. So you're an advertiser, you know, and you're trying to figure out how to get your ad seen. Oops. All right, I grew up before PowerPoint, so I'm really bad at it. The first app that people turn to every day is Facebook. It's social networking. And the last app is going to be something like YouTube. And so those are the only apps that are worth advertising on, the only mobile apps. Now,
you really need to make sure that you are able to keep up with the design trends of Android, because again, people really require it and demand it. So the way to keep Android stylish is use Android standards, right? We just discussed some of the standards that are involved. If you embrace those standards, then you're going to make sure that you fit where you're supposed to, and that's really important. Define common styles. I'll get into this quite a bit more towards the middle of the presentation. Android supplies a CSS style templating style mechanism. Embrace those, because that allows you to separate your presentation logic from your interface logic in a lot of ways, and it makes everything really flexible. And I'll show you quite a few examples of that in a moment. And kind of just to reiterate that, create flexible UI. Don't hard code values. Don't use patterns that are inflexible. Build your interfaces using modern controls that are flexible and easy to manipulate. And so I'm going to show you how I do those things. These are the lessons I learned that have saved me headaches and pulling out my hair when it's time to change the UI yet again. First thing I wanted to highlight is use Android standards. So we went through the history, and I explained that there's lots of times where the designer specified a standard, but there was no controls or no specs. So way back in the day at Choice Hotels, where the designers were asking about how to do X. And I thought we should do X in this way. But that was my thinking, just from being on Android, seeing how other apps do it. There was no specification or no rule book that I could go to and say, well, this is how you have to do it because this is what the rules say. It was like, I think so. I've seen this app do it this way. Finally, we have a super comprehensive design specification for material design. I mean, this is like incredibly detailed. All of the controls are very elaborately spelled out. If you're going to use a control in this way, it has this much space on the sides, the dimensions, the colors, everything is really, really spelled out on this design spec. The important thing for how many developers in the room? Okay, mostly developers and designers. Okay, the really powerful thing about so I'm definitely a developer, right? I have some design kind of aspirations or thinkings, but I'm a designer. I don't have color theory. I don't have, a lot of the important things that a design, a lot of those tools, what some of the styles are defined here, and talk about how these constraints really empower developers. So metrics, right? The material design specs specify a 8 DP grid. So DPs are independent pixels on Android because we don't know what size screen we're going to be looking at. So DP is the Android mechanism. All the metrics for doing anything in the app are defined on this in the spec. So you don't have to think, oh, is this supposed to be 18 dp from the side or 16? It's all just there, and it's specified and very clear. Colors. The material design specification has created a 16 color palette. Each, I think I have it. I guess we'll. So they've created a palette of material design colors. Each color has 10 shades in that. If you stick with these colors, your apps are going to fit really well within the OS itself. And also, this color, it really kind of gives you this palette where it gives you just some constraints to kind of close you in a little bit. I should say for the designers in the room, you don't have to use material design colors. It's just a suggestion. For the developers in the room, use the material design colors, and all your colors just like look good and they definitely the Google design team has spent hours and hours and hours figuring out these colors. I'm going to go back to this slide that I skipped, which is a big lesson I learned, and this is relating to Android in particular. This screen is not a masterpiece, so generally the iOS designers historically are used to laying out every screen unique, right? Because, and this has changed as iOS has evolved. Previously, iOS design was you put a button on a screen at exactly the size you want and exactly the space you want, right? You created an iPad app that looks different than the iPhone app, and it is very explicit and specific on how things are spaced and how things are sized. Don't do that on Android. Create some simple templates, right? Where everything has the same dimensions from the side, all images have approximately the same size. Instead of creating every screen unique, create templates that can be used for multiple screens and multiple use cases. This is extremely flexible because creating these screens one by one is extremely tedious and impractical.
Type of application we're talking about. And then I can make this one thing or make it one thing. Got a complication up here. I preloaded before I was having some beta software issues. So I'm simulating using a digital crown on your device. I'm using my scrolling. Now I'm going backwards in time. And the way I've set this up is this should show, when I hit 9:30, I have my data showing a half an hour before the actual date, start date of the actual event. So the 30 minute show starts at 10, so I've actually got my watch. If you want to have that, you don't want to see that information prior to you actually get there. Right? It's not going to be that useful if you actually show it at the time, right? So you want to be able to use your crown to go back and forth, or we can go forward. And we got another drop down over the 10.
Oh, no, I mean compliance. I was just repeating the presentation myself.
So that's an example of time travel and complications. And then, so the other part of this is, so in order to have a complication, you need to have an app. So here's the actual app that's actually pulling data and communicating with a watch connectivity framework with the actual app. It's actually saying, hey app, you need my data. So this will actually show in a watch format. What I have, the app is not even running here. It's not done in the background. So we go Keynote. Okay. And then you can actually, I have it set up as multi-data. So here we go, it's the same data. And doing color coding for tracks, you don't have that much space. So you have to kind of take into consideration and write your watch app, how you're going to show that. So I wanted to show a little bit of, any questions so far about what I'm showing on the screen or anything like that? How many is that? Have you actually written a complication so far?
I was just gonna, my question's more general. What do you wish you could do on this that you can't do on it?
What I wish. As far as the watch app or the complication?
Either. Take that however you want.
So you have very limited, I mean, the watch app, you have very limited control over. I wish you could do a little more with, as far as the watch app is concerned, with the UI. So you have very limited pieces of information that you can, or controls that you can actually modify and whatnot. So a very small subset of what you actually get on the phone, right? It's not really good, is it? So Chris before talked about what you needed to.
Sure. Can you go into the preferences and make that font a little bit larger?
How's it? 32?
Or there's presentation style on the left.
Presentation large.
Jack with my font style. So I don't show a lot of code on the screen. So this is an example of the your complicated. So when you add a
for that specific reason. So that's fine. Support it, but the price is obviously way higher at that point, and they're willing to pay for it. I guess my take on it is, if you're making a deal, stick to the deal. You know, don't say you're not going to do it, and then let it depend on the contracts.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The model that you're referring to, is it specifically for services kind of a model, or is it for products where you're coming up with an idea and trying to make a product and then take it to the market? What kind of a model is this?
So the model I'm talking about will work for whether it be product, service, whatever you're trying to do. Like when we were doing our startups, some were creating devices, some were just offering a service. And the same thing applies. Usually when you're doing a product, if you're doing early, I guess, prototypes or just validating an MVP in a certain sector of it, that might be affordable. But you start getting into supply chain, getting into that process, you want to make those mistakes earlier and figure out who you want to work with earlier rather than going down the path, figuring out the wrong supplier, wrong provider, wrong whatever, because it gets way more expensive, especially on a physical product. So it's easier when we're talking software, but if you're doing a product, do that even more up front to figure out who you really want to work with.
I have a question. Once you, if suppose if some new customer comes to you and you hear all his requirements and you think you have enough resources and you take his projects, or you think like, let me get whatever I get, then think of if I can get the resources, what's your approach will be?
Oh yeah, so, well, I'll tell you what our approach is. So I've been doing software for several decades. And whether it be back in the day when I was doing waterfall to agile to whatever, not once have we come up with the right definition. We'll call it a box, because we're all defining this box. And say you're my client, and then I'm sitting here and you're sitting here, and we're talking about this is what the box looks like, and it's got square sides and corners and this, and it's this big, and it's this color, and it's weighs this much, and all these things. We spent a lot of time defining what that box is. You know why we did that? Because you know down the line we're going to have an uncomfortable conversation. You're going to change your mind. I know it. I may even come up with some ideas to help you change your mind because it's a better way to go. But that means we have to spend more developer resources. It's just reality. So what I've done is just step away from the painful discussion that I'm going to have with a client later. We do flat hourly. We don't do flat rate. We don't do project-based. I'll give you a quote. We'll sit down and learn and discover what it is. We'll tell you what we think it'll take. And sometimes it's under, sometimes it's over. But the reality is, no time you've made these definitions have I found that it's perfect. And that's what we're coding. I mean, yeah. Does that answer it?
Yeah, and also sometimes there'll be a lot of other competitors who are ready to do maybe much better ways so that you think of all the other aspects.
I'm not sure I understand.
Like there may be other competitors that may be ready to do the same thing.
Right.
With a much better rate or with a much better time.
Well, that's constant. Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, there's competitors everywhere. There's like, here's what I did. I just had meetings with two of my core competitors that are much bigger than me. You know what they said? Hey, can you help us? Don't be afraid to talk to them. Like, oh my gosh, I had meetings and, you know, I should have said, oh, I want to talk to them. They're going to, like, ruin me. You meet with them and you say, hey, here's what we do. Here's how. I even offered to help one of them do what I do internally because they're much bigger. I'm like, you're going to get much greater margins. You know how happy they were? They sent us work. Work with people. There's plenty of work out there. Just go engage with your competitors. So that's my suggestion. Don't be afraid of the competitors. They'll bring you, if you're good, they'll bring you work. They just want to look good, and you're providing a better rate maybe, or some other service they don't have, they're going to remember you. You got one right there. Yeah. Oh.
So for your company, in terms of the projects that you take on, do you have a core competency or do you take any technology in the project?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, we're not trying to solve every problem.
The second one is how can you afford giving the same project to, for example, 3 offshore companies? How would you manage that with your client? How does it work?
Because the price of offshore is significantly lower than US-based pricing. And usually what we're doing there is you're doing early stage to just determine, give them a small subset of a project, you don't give them the whole project. So you say, here's a portion of it, I'm going to figure out very quickly how good you are based on just doing this. So, I mean, you find out really quickly, I'm not working with you, you have some potential, and you're great. I mean, that's really what it is. It's a validation phase, it's a filter.
Two-part question. First part is, do you need large amounts of money to get your company off the ground with investors and angels and all that other stuff? Or can you just, sorry, I came in a little late if you already...
That is a great question. No, I was talking to Ed earlier, that's why we're smiling. It's a great question. Keep going.
And if you're just one developer with a laptop, I mean, can you have a decent amount of penetration in your competing market without like large sums of money? And the second question is, once your company gets off the ground, can you scale it to a level that doesn't require a brick and mortar office or hiring employees and all of that overhead? Can you basically just be a road warrior CEO with a laptop that just takes his company with him? I mean, you know,
Can I say hell yes? Yeah, hell yes. Absolutely. And I mean, from there's stories of my mother immigrated here from Sweden. She had maybe like $400 in me, and she's worth quite a bit right now. And yes, absolutely, you can snowball into these little things, reinvest and grow. She didn't do software, by the way, but you know, I have the same mentality. When I was doing this company and we started it, I was spending probably about 10 hours a week on the side while I was working at ASU. So yeah, I did that. To answer your question about the money, absolutely do not need that. Just do it. And get out there, get some contracts, and grow it. Keep growing it. Now, if you have a niche where you're really good at, say, a particular API set or a particular skill set, then you're going to have a better time going out. But at the end of the day, the bottleneck is you. And do you really want to be like, okay, you're going to cap your earnings at a certain point, no matter how great you are, you're going to cap it. You need to expand that. And that's where, when I went to the outsource model, I brought in these people. I mean, there's only so much of you that you can have and bill for, but that's when, and it was a contracting model, and we have a few employees, but predominantly contractors. And the reason we did that is it allows us to flex. And so far, so good. It's worked really well. But if you could do that, when you go and get a contract, you can grow it and bring the right people in. And we were talking earlier, you probably heard that, hire 3, figure out which one you want to work with. That type of model works. And just build it into your client. Just put a little buffer into the initial cost, figure out who you want to work with. So the answer is absolutely yes. And I'll talk to you more about it on the sideline if you'd like.
I don't know if you're ready to get to this or not, but what kind of billable hourly rates are you using? And do you use like a multiple stage rate, so you've got like a higher rate for senior people, and you use a lower rate for the people, that kind of thing?
That's great. And you're going to get the slide deck, so don't worry, it's not like a secret. You're getting this. Our rates are tiered. What we tried to, you know what, I love this. We're just going to jump around this presentation all over. We use 3 tiers of pricing. It's usually based on commitment. We're looking for longer term commitments and working with companies longer time, so we incentivize them by producing much lower rates on longer term commitments. Reason I changed, I used to have hours listed here, short term, medium, and long. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still not sure what those hours are, so I'm not quite, go ahead. See, that's what I'm talking about right now. I don't know. We had numbers, but I don't think they fit with reality. So my what I was using is not fitting with what the customer base wants. So that's why I changed it to very vague terms in answering this. I don't have a great answer yet, but if you follow up with me, say maybe in a month, I probably will. Yeah. Working capital? Oh my gosh, I actually have that too. Let's talk about this. How do we do billing? We bill on net 10. We're small. They they work with us because we are smaller. They understand that we can't have a 60, 90 day, window sitting there. So, that's our answer. Well, no, that will never work with a government contract. And we have some. We got them down to a 60. So yes, you can negotiate a little one. You cannot get to what I want. But with those, they're much bigger. Yeah.
So you said that starting or working on a startup idea could not be very costly.
My name's Jerome. This is Gabe. We're with iFactor. We are the ones sponsoring the lunch, so we appreciate. Hopefully, we'll get down with it pretty quick. It's fun if it's ham and cheese and that's it. We'd like to just talk about some of the assortment of tools that we are using on the mobile team. Unfortunately, I am not a mobile developer, so I apologize. I'm strictly here to probably talk a little bit more about iFactor for about 5 minutes.
You're the one with the credit card, right?
I probably am the one with the credit card.
So where are we going for happy hour?
This thing's already checked up. Technology's one.
You want me to push the slide for you?
I'm clicking stuff.
Oh, nice.
That's the building that we work in. Same building as Microsoft KPMG, right off downtown Tempe Lake. Kind of sweet place if you're a runner. Just run around the lake quite a bit. We were founded in 2014. but we are exclusively, we build software solutions for the utility industry. A lot of that revolves around, we have a, this is pretty much our secret sauce. Hold on, now you guys can figure out how to build the same company. But we work with all the different back office solutions for the utility, and we try to get that to their customers. So generally it's from the utility, APS, SRP would be the ones that you're familiar with. Unfortunately, they are not our customers. At least not yet. But we'll use a lot of their back office solutions, build applications on top of that. A lot of it's web-based. So if you ever look up Storm Center maps, get information like text messaging, email alerts, that's the stuff that, that's the business that we're in, as well as we build their mobile apps. A little bit more of our client, of the general states that we operate in, working in some of the Canadian areas, as well as quite a significant portion of the United States. The only one to highlight is we're headquarters in Arizona, yet we have no business in Arizona right now. It's a little bit interesting. It's an interesting thing is a lot of our solutions are mostly based off of outages. I don't know if any of you guys know, we don't get a lot of outages in power, right? No? So nothing like a hurricane, we don't have a lot of ice storms. That does not happen here. So a lot of our solutions don't really work that well in Arizona. Now with our mobile app, generally that utility will want to build it. Either they have pretty much two options now, build it in-house or outsource it. We are one of those outsourcing companies. They'll write up something for us and we'll try to accommodate for them, build a design. A lot of times it depends on what they want to do with it. Some of the main things that they want to go is, bill presentment, payment, as well as the energy usage. That's started to become a lot more interesting, especially because Nest is getting involved. A couple of these other different smart home technologies. Now you can start seeing some of this usage ability. The utility industry is starting to see that as a threat of the potential of losing some of their market share potentially. Mostly if they start deregulating the industry. So they are starting to utilize that a lot more, as well as preference management. That somehow piggybacks on our alerting system, so push alerts, as well as other type of channels to communicate with. And outage communication, which is kind of our bread and butter, is to be able to communicate right to the utility. No one wants to pick up a phone call anymore and report that your power is out. People just want to push a button and say, my power's out, come and fix it. This is the worst technology we want. Go back. Some of the statistics, we have 16 mobile apps currently in market right now. If you ever look up iFactor in iTunes, you'll see our apps. That is 16 on the iTunes of the App Store, as well as 16 on Android. We generally, if they are building it, we are building it for both, and we build them as native apps. And I think we possibly still have a BlackBerry app out there, strictly because the utility was in that, is where BlackBerry's headquarters is at. So it's a long story, but that's how we had to accommodate. We've had about 1 million downloads on iOS and about 500,000 downloads on Android. Some of the awards that we've gotten, some of them I'm quite proud of. Coolest Vendor Award, 2013. Why? Because someone has to be cool. If you don't know that industry is extremely boring. There's not much innovation happening. And what iFactor's been trying to do is push them to the 21st century, or at least to the millennium. If some of you guys are pretty familiar with if you're not happy with your power company. We have won a couple awards particularly for our mobile apps. We're definitely the kind of cutting edge for the utility industry and the presenting of their data on the mobile side. Now, I am done talking, guys, so I'll give this to Gabe so he can start actually providing me real useful information. That is to be determined.
Alright, hey everybody. My name is Gabriel Mann. I actually graduated ASU this year with a degree in software engineering. And I started at iFactor and I've been there for 3 months. And then they said, why don't you do a presentation? I was like, alright. So what you'll learn today, we'll talk about analyzing crash reports and performance data. We use a tool called Crashlytics. Then also Crashlytics, you can distribute test codes very easily. Another topic will be managing updates to deployed apps with the configuration manager. And then also the final topic will be API consolidation translation with Enterprise Service Bus. How many of you guys, by show of hands, have actually used or heard of these or know what these are? Okay. Alright, cool. And these concepts aren't really that specific to mobile development. They can be applied to any platform. But these are the tools we use in our mobile team. Where did you Oh, there we go. It's just like case 17. Okay, so human stack traces aren't very useful. I don't know if you've seen crash reports from general users just telling you how to crash, and you're just like, it's not helpful. But so this one's you tap the Pebble icon. These aren't from us. These are. You tap the Pebble icon, observe it, try to open it, and then it crashes. And this one says, inbox app crashes when accessing mail via notifications. And she says, the title says it all really. And it's like, well, not really. These aren't that helpful. You don't know anything about the version or the device they're on, or the environment they're running. So it's really not helpful. I mean, it definitely, obviously, no one released an app that, just says, release an app that crashed when you're accessing mail via notifications. When the developer made it, he obviously made sure that worked on his device that he was testing on, but clearly didn't work on different devices, different environments. So what's the solution to that? Crashlytics. Crashlytics lets with Crashlytics, you can easily add Crashlytics SDK to a project. It's very simple. They pretty much write the code for you, and you just say accept. With Crashlytics, you can also control the distribution of your builds to testers. So you drop your APK in, send emails wherever you want. There's also provisioning profiles for if you have a list of users that are testing, you can select which ones get which builds, or you can block certain users. And then with that, with every crash, you get a crash report via email. It's really useful. And I'll actually show you real quick. Live demos aren't the best suggestion, but I'll try to do it. So let's see here. So essentially, you really just go to their site, Fabric. You select which platform you're developing for. These are really popular. So Android Studio. From here, you'll just download a zip file. And then with that zip file, and in Android Studio, I'm just going to show you Android. It's also applicable to iOS. Just do plugins, install plugin from the disk. You select that zip file. I already have it installed, so I don't need to do it, but it will automatically install. It's super easy. So what we'll try to do here is we're just going to start a new project. Call it Foobar, I guess. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the setup screen. This isn't relevant, it's just setting activities. So here we have our application, and for demonstration purposes, let's just say our main activity is really poorly written, and instead of returning actual layout, we'll just return null, so it will crash. And then we're like, okay, we have this great application here. Let's get it tested and distribute it. Here's the plugin. You just click there. We already have an organization set up. You can set up your own. Ours and say which of these SDKs you want to install. I'm just going to show you Crashlytics, so install Crashlytics. From here, it will automatically insert the dependencies you need into your Gradle. Automatically input your metadata that you need and the permissions you need for it to work, and also add the code into your main activity file to initialize it. So you just hit apply, and then it will rebuild for you. And then you'll just have to run it from here. So once you run it, it will distribute it. It's open in emulator. You don't really need to see it. It's just gonna set it up for you, and then when you actually run, anytime you run the app and it crashes, it will send a report for you. So now it's so now we have it set up. Here's our project. It's just going to run and crash. Oh, I'm sorry.
And also we have a face tracking middleware. See, basically you can track my face and also detect all those face landmarks like the eye and the mouth and whatever. And you can also detect my expression, like I'm happy and whatever, surprised. So another usage is, I will show this, is pretty much you can do more like a 3D scanning. So that's me. So I start my snowboard lesson, beginner's lesson. So let's go back to our presentation. Here. So another category of another line of real-time camera Intel currently offers is the long range. Basically, it's the rear-facing and wall-facing camera. This equipment is designed for the tablet and or fabric, all these kind of combinations, and also 2-in-1. And so this camera pretty much is currently this tablet I am holding is a tablet based on Intel's Churchill 14 nanometer Churchill SoC, and it runs Android 5.1. And the long-range camera, here are some of the usages. So first is it can do the same as the front-facing. It can do 3D capture and also share and print because it's longer range, so it can basically scan a larger object, basically like do your full body scan. And it can also be used in the contact creation, some contact creation project. And I will show you how this is demoed. So pretty much is how it's used. Without video, I think some people don't use it. Let's see. So basically, you have a empty space, like 3 by 3 meter. So you try to arrange some furniture in this open space. So you use your tablet to capture the space. So then after that, you went to IKEA to want to see if you can have some furniture can fit into this space. So you virtually you can move a armchair and or some other furniture around and arrange it to see if it fits. And you can also change the color of the armchair to see if it like your style. So you pretty much get the idea, right? So because it's a very long video, I'm not going to show the whole video. And also you can do some online shopping. You can also use this because it's a long range, so you can capture pretty much larger objects. And because also because the camera provides both the RGB, the color image, and also comes with the depth information. So we can easily develop some instant post-processing tools using the depth information. We'll discuss it later. And
what doesn't fit about these videos with the title of my presentation, Smartphones for the Next Billion? Smartphones. Now, these weren't smartphones. And this is basically the previous generation of all these things that have been built on dumb phones. But I actually wanted to show that to emphasize how far we came on dumb phones. You can imagine, I think, do we have any developers in the room? Any mobile developers? Yeah, okay. Would you like to go write some custom software for a dumb Nokia candy stick phone? No way. Have you ever? Who here has written software for, okay. You get some respect points there. So actually, having done both, have you also done Android or iOS?
Yeah.
How would you compare them in ease of developing?
Ease of developing, like WAP stuff was pretty easy to develop. It was pretty straightforward, but capabilities were so limited that figuring out how to make a user experience that worked and was helpful was much more difficult.
Same in different languages too.
Yeah, so I think you can imagine, that struggle to make a text user interface with just a couple of rows is such a struggle to accomplish any of these awesome things that people are doing. Compared to now, you can go to a 3-month app coding academy and come out writing apps that actually people feel comfortable using. One other thing I've mentioned here that I don't like about these, to me they strike me a little bit as aid. We had in a couple of these, I'm not sure all of them, but a couple of, I felt like there's like a Westerner talking about how we developed some software for these third world people to use. And that's not what I want to focus on in my presentation right now. Because the people who are developing these new apps that are going to transform economies from Mexico to India to Indonesia to Kenya, a lot of them are in-country. And there's a lot of international blend. It's not us in the US building something for people to lift them up. It's about them building themselves up. Okay, I want to do another quick exercise. So let's do this in same groups. There are 2 handouts.
It's all there because I made sure, hey, first, the way I did my fetch routine was first go try. If you fail, try to grab it from cache. So I'm always grabbing the latest, but if it fails, it's still going to grab me. It's still going to work. The other thing I want to show, sorry if you guys can't see it in the back, is add to home screen. It prompts me with the name that I put in that manifest. I hit add, and the things will pop up. Oh, this is the thing. GitHub wants to, and I think this is a problem with the manifest JSON as well, or with adding to home screen. It still wants to go back to HTTP. I can, if I was plugged in, I could point to HTTPS and we're still good, but I'm sure that'll be worked out soon. These things really, for some reason, want to bounce back to HTTP and not HTTPS. But if it's not HTTPS, it's fine. Like that guy on HTTPS. Okay, so, cool, we've got a few minutes. I'm holding everybody up from lunch, so I'll get through this next part here pretty quick. I looked for the absolute stupidest cloud messaging image that I could find, and that was it. So, all right, cloud messaging. All right, so we want to do server push, right? This is the other thing that you would have to do a native app for because your app's not even up and running, but maybe you want to do a Facebook notify. Actually, Facebook just added this a few days ago. If anybody saw this, if they're using a mobile Facebook site that says, hey, can we send you notifications? And what that's doing is they've updated their manifest to allow for cloud messaging. So what happens is, this right here is just some details of things that we put in manifest, and this is actually Google Cloud Messaging specific. We tell what our ID is, and right now it has to be a visible message. We can't have the cloud just push to us without us seeing something pop up. And I'm not sure why that is, but that's just the API right now. Our client registration, what we did earlier to actually register the service worker. Sorry, this looks awful. I think the format didn't work right in here. But one extra step that we're taking now is when we registered and when it's successful, we can add a push manager subscribe with user visibility true, and then we'll get a subscription. And maybe I want to set a flag on my page that, yeah, push is enabled, so I can show in the UI, hey, you're going to get push notifications. Set subscription, that means I'll just take whatever the subscription is and give it back to my server, because this is a URL that I could post to from outside anywhere, and it'll come back to this particular device. So this is basically how Facebook now is able to, without installing their app, if you get a notification, just because you went to their mobile site and you logged in, it works the same way. And the browser doesn't have to be up and running. You just get a notification, and it'll talk to that service worker that's running, and then the service worker can do something with it.
Okay, I noticed the same thing recently. But what I noticed that they didn't give you the opt-in option. It started.
Yeah, I mean, you could cancel. I'm pretty sure you can
turn it off.
You can turn it off, but yeah, it just, anybody that goes to their mobile website right now, if you're logged in and you're on Chrome on Android, you'll get that. iOS doesn't have any of the Service Worker yet. In fact, I'm not sure that they're on board with it yet. Microsoft is on board with Service Worker, Mozilla's on board with Service Worker, Opera is, and Chrome is. The holdout right now is Safari, and it's kind of like the new IE6 right now. Okay, so sweet. What do we do on our Service Worker? Because we did that cloud message thing. So we got that URL that we sent somewhere, and we had this URL, and maybe Octoblue is a good example, right? We had this work. I don't know if anybody saw that. IoT, right? We have these data flows. We hit a button, a tweet comes in, something happens, triggers this other thing. All of that, or if this then that, all of these services that, something comes in one server, goes somewhere else. Well, it could post to our Google Cloud messaging URL that we got from subscribing. That event gets pushed down here. On our Service Worker, we add one more listener listening for push notifications. What this guy does here is he's actually showing the notification using some custom code to do this. And it's pretty much that simple. There's a bunch of other things we can do here as well. So it's going to show the notification. And I'm not sure actually what happens if we take this out, because it said it has to show it. So something's going to pop up. But we could also maybe talk to any tabs that are open. Maybe show the little red one that something popped up in Facebook or whatever. But that notification that came through can affect the UI. And even if there's none of the UI, you could pop up another window if you wanted to. And if that bothers somebody, they'll not go to your website anymore.
Which direction you are facing, what's going in outside around you in the real world. Do you have any way you can get into that context, apply that context, then your life is going to be much more easy. And it's going to help a lot. I'm going to talk about a lot of use cases, like how these sensors are going to help you, how you can live in the context of the world where life is going to be very smooth. And I'm going to talk about some use cases where you need to have that. Without that, you can't live in the future. So if you look at the traditional smartphone, you have I think average sensors on any smartphone is 14 sensors. You have GPS sensor, Wi-Fi sensor, camera sensors, Bluetooth. Obviously there is a B Bluetooth low energy, which is again on the same sensor but uses the less power, which is like enabler for all these IoT things to be connected to the phone. So there is NFC, again I think Apple recently wrote out NFC, but which is there in Android phones for a while. So there's a barometer, proximity, light sensor, blah, blah, blah. So if you look at smartphone apps, some of the apps can detect the context today. For example, if you use Google Now or something, it can tap into your calendar, it can tap into your email. You guys familiar with Google Now? If you have the itinerary in your Gmail, it is going to automatically pop up and saying that you need to start now from your home to catch this flight because your itinerary is showing that you need to fly to San Francisco today. If you start now, it is going to consider the amount of time that is going to take to travel from your home to the airport. So if you are familiar with the Waze, it is going to get the real-time traffic, not the real-time traffic that the state of department or the motor vehicle MVD sends. Waze is the application so where users crowdsourced to update the traffic patterns of their life. If I use the Waze, if I see an accident on 101 somewhere, I'm going to post that there is an accident. The more people like that post, then that information is going to become very relevant. So using that information now, Waze and Google can predict that what is the alternate route. If you go in this route based on these traffic patterns, every Waze user, that they have the application running on smartphone, but it can detect how fast you are driving on the road. So it is going to predict that what is the traffic speed on that particular road, and it can automatically predict the alternate routes, and it can tell that you need to start now, even though the average time it takes from home to airport is 15 minutes, but because of the accident on 102, you need to start 30 minutes before because of the alternate route, because of the traffic patterns. So we are living in a bit of contextual world, where your apps are reading the information from the other apps, where the other apps is taking the information from the users. But it's not sufficient. If you look at I think these three applications, one is Apple Siri, Google Voice, and Microsoft Cortana. All three are the personal contextual assistants. That means those applications can tap into your digital footprint like email, calendar. It can read the information about your appointments, your travel plans, etc. I'm going to suggest something. So if you ask Siri is yet to be integrated with your mail and calendar. If you ask what time I need to start to the airport, it doesn't have any clue because it can't read through your calendars and identify the travel plans. But if you ask Google now, it is already indexing the information that is part of your Gmail. It can predict that you need to start because it understands the context that you're traveling to San Francisco. So all these personal contextual assistants are evolving to provide the context information relative to your digital footprint, but not about the surroundings in the real world. It's not connected to that real world yet. So the missing piece is obviously smartphones are just integrated with your digital footprint like your calendar or the email. But there are more things in the world that are not integrated with your smartphone, so somehow you need to tap into that real world. So a lot of things are out there. For example, these lights, this projector, everything is disconnected. It's a thing in the real world, but it's not connected. Now if I need to increase the lighting in the room, somebody needs to manually adjust the lighting. But if it can, somehow if you connect that one to the digital footprint, or right now there is a conference going on so that the lights needs to be dim. The conference is over, people are leaving the room, then the light should automatically come. If you connect everything together, you can automate a lot of stuff. So the possibilities are endless if you connect the things. So the context world is possible when you connect the unconnected.
And with all devices in the disk, now we build a platform that enables connection to those devices to work, right? And then we can automate things. Let's go forward. So the next slide.
All right, so where is IoT today, right? So a lot of times you'll hear things like smart enabled, internet connected X, right? Where X could be a toothbrush, somebody's plunger. A lot of times you're getting a lot of smart devices, but you're getting those devices where you're locked in, right? Where if I sell you a Nest, I have to sell you the software that goes along with it. Everybody's building a silo, right? So if I have 50 devices, I'm gonna have 50 apps on my phone to control each of those devices. And that is a terrible experience, right? I don't wanna have to do that. I don't wanna have to say, okay, thumb through and figure out where is my Nest, thumb through and figure out where is my thermos, like my coffee maker or anything else. And that, the problem is a lot of companies are thinking because we don't have, the hardware is the cheap part, that they have to sell you the software in order to be able to justify higher prices, right? If I'm selling you a $250 Nest, I have to sell you the software stack. And so that gives you that vendor lock. And so the other thing is wearables, right? Wearables where I have Fitbit, but the mobile phone is essentially central to all that. I have all these BLE devices, whether it's a heart rate monitor, whether it's an earpiece, whether it is a watch, where it's tethered to, everything is tethered to your phones. And then the other thing that's pretty big right now, or basic in IT, with mobile, is beacons. So physical context, check into a room, have beacons on every parking garage, so you can actually
know what floor they're parked on. So there's a lot of, we're not quite at the level where everything is going to work with everything else in it. And that's what we're trying, that's the problem we're trying to solve. Makes sense? All right, so go back one. All right, I think I will have to grab the slides here. So right now we will go back. We'll give you a live demo just to show you how easy it is to build with Octoblue because we haven't really shown that. So here, actually, we're going to have Olu. Do you want to wear the mic?
Yeah, I'll wear the mic on here, and you can go to the back.
Okay, so this is where let's make sure this piece is happening.
Got it. So this is a Mayo. It's a gesture recognizer. I put it on my arm, and it can recognize gestures from my arm.
So the main thing with the Mayo is it allows you to recognize certain poses. So you can make a fist, you can spread your fingers, you can wave in and wave out. So what we're going to do is see if we can connect that. So we have the Mayo connected through Octoblue, and what we'll try to do is see if we can do something interesting with it in a short period of time. So I'll go back there and drive while Olu is demonstrating making poses.
So right before we get into the demo, we're going to show you, actually give you a tour of Octoblue. We're giving you a tour of one of the pieces of Octoblue, and this piece is what we call the designer, right? It lets you design flows, what we call flows in Octoblue, and a flow is simply an automation, right? An automation that's designed like flows. What are flows? Think data streams. You have input and you have an output. So before we go into the slide, let's take a look at Octoblue and see what Octoblue looks like. So let's take a look at themes. So that's what our designer looks like. Today we support quite a bunch of devices and things we like to call things, right? We're dealing with Internet of Things, and we have things in the Internet of Things, blah, blah, blah. But one key thing here is where if you take a look at that list, we just don't have hardware devices, right? We're kind of being the guy, the broker between hardware and software, right? And not just hardware, but like really smart hardware that can talk to the internet and really dumb hardware that cannot talk to the internet, right? So let's take a look at what we support for car automation. Let's take a look at that real quick. We support Automatic. Rally Finder from a local company here called Local Motors. They're based in Chandler. They sell these really cool cars. They call them the Rally Finders. And we actually have Octoblue running inside in every car. Tesla, we support Tesla, Uber. Let's scroll down to home automation. So today you can actually talk to all of these things using Octoblue, right? And if you think about it, right, like we're opening the door to a lot of different things from one platform, right? Meaning you can design flows that can talk to Belkin email to turn something on if you're close to home, for instance, based on your proximity to home. Or like whenever you turn on the lights in a period of time, you get the lights to tweet that, hey, I'm on, right? And that's brought to you because we're kind of the broker that manages talking to every device. Underneath all that, we're going to do a deep dive into the technology later.
It tells me the output, and all the data that is from here was all stored originally in that CSV file and then converted into GeoJSON, and all those are just properties on the GeoJSON. So that's cool. And I could even connect these points and make it so when you roll over them, then it highlights the points over there, and we'll do all that stuff when we make it a real app. And then here's a demo that a friend of mine did that kind of got all this started. And basically, let's just zoom in a little bit. He wanted to make donuts. He thought it was cool to make a donut. So he made a thing where you click on a point, and there's like literally
100 lines of JavaScript in order to do that. Because you make a circle and then another circle that's smaller than that, and then you intersect them with turf and do all this stuff to make that donut. Then he intersects it again. It's kind of a neat, it's just like a fun little demo. I don't know what the point, of making donuts is, except for that it's fun to make little crazy things. But it just kind of shows you the kinds of things that you can do that are really fast. I mean, there's a whole mess of points on the screen, and it still works really fast. It's actually really well done and really fast. Really easy. I mean, it just doesn't take that much. It's a CSV file with some lat-long coordinates, and you're off to the races. And I think this is just bigger bats. So anyway, so those are some of the demos and some of the things that I did with it. So, yeah, I like this kind of thing I can put on the website. I don't need any back-end stuff. It'll be really, really easy to integrate this with our existing site. So that's it. No infrastructure, powerful and fast, and it's just JavaScript. But there are some cons. Like when you put that many DOM elements on a map, it does get really slow. 1,000 seems to work okay, but I don't think 10,000 would work very well. And all that data is in memory, so the phone, like iPhones only have a gig of memory or whatever, so the memory goes really, really fast. And that's all stored as GeoJSON, and if you look in Chrome Developer Tools, you see the amount of memory you're using just rockets up as soon as it fills that page. And then, we're at Phoenix Mobi, so we have to talk about mobile. Like, what happens when you do mobile? I have to download all these files to a phone and then do the work of making the library available or whatever. And so this is a big stuff. That's a lot of information. 2.5 megabytes of data is nothing to sneeze at. If it was compressed with HTTP, it would probably be less. And like I said before, with D3, I'm only using one little function, so that would probably be like 20K. And with turf, well, I'm pretty much using all that, so I'm going to need that. Actually, turf, I'm not using that much. I'm only using 4 or 5 functions, so that could be cut down a lot. Leaflet could be cut down a lot because, actually, Leaflet I can't cut down. That's actually isn't as broken down as turf and D3 are. And then jQuery is really small these days. The collocation data was surprisingly small. It was only 100K for all of those points. And I couldn't believe it. I just thought, well, that's great. And when it was GeoJSON, it was over a meg. So, and then the zip code data, again, I think that was more of a fun thing, just so that I can demonstrate that you can have it all on the server and not have to use, or have it all on the client and not have to use the server at all. Like I wanted to demo something like that. So that's a big file. And that's actually after stripping out all kinds of stuff and doing all kinds of work to make it as small as it could be. So it's a big chunk, but it could be significantly smaller. So if it was made into an app with Cordova, like you could have almost offline maps. The only thing you're ever pulling from the web is the base map images. And my next challenge is going to be to use Webpack or Browserify or whatever the new hipster thing is to take those JavaScript libraries and automate minifying them and getting rid of the stuff that I don't need and doing my dependencies right. But that'll be the next phase of the project. I went a lot faster than I thought.
Now, if you're interested, because of my timing, and I really want to make sure I get to a couple more things that should dazzle, just understand that under deploy, it gives you some very brief instructions about Android and about iOS. So you don't have to fish and swim for a whole bunch of stuff
It's very self-explanatory, very easy, one click to get to what you need. Even the documentation here shows you how, I'm doing this through a visual through the website, but you know what? You're probably going to want to integrate this into your build solution, so it's showing you how you could use this and do it all command line as well, right?
Okay.
So, yes?
Quick question on those errors that you pointed out. Are we looking at things like on the website if there's a flash content or video content, those things?
It's looking for everything, including things like that it would detect would be a problem if it were going to be used as an app. And it's an ongoing process where the team behind this open source project, they're working to always improve, those areas. But yes, that's what it's looking for. Please.
So what's the rendering target, like when you compare it to Universal versus Manifold? Is Universal actually rendering to Windows or to a web browser?
Okay, so actually the irony of it all is Manifold.js is actually producing the package that Visual Studio also does. So this is an alternative to Visual Studio to create the package that I need to upload to the Microsoft Store, right? But this does more, obviously, because Visual Studio doesn't provide any packages for everybody else's store. But this does.
Yeah, but my question is more, what actually renders it? Is it rendering HTML in a web view, or is it rendering to the native components?
No, it's a web view.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, so you mean the package, is it basically containing a web view? Yes, that's what it is. Yes?
Is there anything that separates this from PhoneGap or Cordova?
What he just said is absolutely true. If you go down and look at the, let me go back to the beginning here. It takes metadata about your site and generates it. If the platform doesn't support hosted apps, we use Cordova to polyfill. So that's the role of Cordova here. That's it.
Just to give it web view.
That's right. Okay, so now that I've gotten there, the other thing that for the Windows folks in here, for the people who are running Windows 10, one thing that's kind of cool is that the team has also produced the Manifold Test Portal app. So this is, if you have Windows 10 and you go to the store, you can download this, it's free. And what it allows you to do is also put your app here, and you could see how it would run in this environment. So, again, I could go to like that Babylon one that we did earlier, and now I'm seeing this run in the context of the Manifold Test Portal, and maybe it was because debugging was on in the previous one, because this is now running through the app and it's at 60 frames per second. So that's my guess. I was in a debug environment instead of the real deal. Anyway, that's how quick I can test and start doing stuff, within this Manifold Test Portal.
Question.
Please.
So have you come across any websites where this is completely wrong?
The question was, have I come across any websites where I blew up the Manifold.js app?
The test where we have it rendered.
So yeah, I wish I could remember a couple of the URLs, but there was one where what it did is it just sat there. The app just sat there and cycled and nothing ever came on the screen. And it was consistent with that one site, but I don't know, it must have prompted me and I blocked it from memory. It was a tragic thing. So I don't remember what site it was, but I didn't like how the app handled it. I mean, it just hung, so I think that's a poor thing. But yeah, there is something that can make it go wacko.
So is there like, can you see what sort of errors come up? Or is that a concern to the team?
So I think that the app was just basically to kind of get a look and feel of what it would look like running in the context of an app. Because if you just go to Manifold.js, all it's going to do is produce the package. So this is just like a little testing thing. If you didn't have Visual Studio and you just wanted to see it, you could just use the app and put it in the URL and see how it would behave within that context. But it's not a debugging tool. It's not something that you would troubleshoot with. It's more just like I think they just put it out there just to say, hey, if you just want to experiment and get an idea.
Before you go to Visual Studio, you just run that test and you know that it's going to at least have a chance to work.
That's correct. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So don't think of the app.
Right.
Manifold.js good. Manifold.js app fun, but not supposed to be anything other than just for looking. Just experiment.
Question.
Yes.
So I imagine if you have a responsive website, you just want to create a quick app for example, local business or restaurant with a menu.
Yeah.
So you have a responsive website already built. So you just create a package and upload to Android.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So what if you update the website again, you have to compile it?
No. So if you're using, I'm so glad you said that. So let me repeat his question. If you're using the approach where your start entry point you're using Manifold.js, you're truly creating what's called a hosted web app. So that means the entire app is really dedicated to whatever you pointed it to. And it goes from there. And it could be a subset of a website. You can restrict that it only stays there as well, right? If you wanted to. You can control what happens to any external link clicks. Do you want that to actually open an external browser? Or do you want it to open within something inside? So you have control over that. But his question was, okay, I've gone through the process of getting the Manifold.js, I put it in all the stores, and now we made some changes to the site. Do I need to make changes to the app and re-upload? What do you think? No. Sometimes. Except for sometimes it is true. It is true, except for sometimes. But especially for minor things that don't really break the...
Bug fix is a perfect example.
Yeah, bug fixes. Nothing that breaks the contract that you kind of already have within the app. If you're going to start adding new capabilities, or if you're going to do something that goes beyond the scope of what you allowed it to do. I mean, there's a number of things where you might need to actually re-upload. But for small fixes and things like that, no, you wouldn't have to do that at all.
Sensor data from the microphone of the phone. And if you have time, we'll get to the handle results. But we may just get through the first 3 parts, gather some data, and then that's that.
So new question.
Yeah.
Is HealthKit for the phone, or the watch, or the pole?
Good question. So there's a difference between HealthKit and ResearchKit, first of all. So this is, what's that?
What did I say?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is primarily meant for the phone. And that's the example that we're going to use too. I think the framework is pretty flexible, so I think you can probably use it for iPad too. I haven't seen it used for Apple Watch or but yeah, so the informed consent will just be, what does this study entail? Do you agree, do you disagree? And have you collect your signature. The survey will be, I have several questions for you. Can you tell me yes or no? You can either type something in, or choose your answer images. And then the active task is gathering data from the microphone. Okay, so this is what I mentioned before. This is the actual written tutorial online. And I'm going to just close this presentation in a moment and we'll pull it up because that's where all the code snippets are going to be coming from. If you're on Xcode 6, then, or 6.4, then the code snippets will be updated with that. I'm using Xcode 7, so if you're using Xcode 7, you can see that how it's updated. And all the sample code is at that GitHub location. I'll post that again. But if you just would rather just download all the code and then just watch me code it instead of having it built in from scratch, you can just go there. So, without further ado, that's the last slide. Okay, so see, that's my last slide. So let's get to working. So the first thing we want to do is we want to actually find ResearchKit. So I'm going to put the link down. So you actually want the GitHub version of ResearchKit here.
There's a microphone stand. I don't want you.
Yeah, I might have to use it.
Sit down and face it.
Yeah.
A couple of them.
I have enough in this room until summer. This really is like a live concert. Alright, so you want to grab the clone URL from the ResearchKit repo, and then if you have a terminal handy, here we go. So I have my own little directory here, but if you want to clone that URL, you just copy and paste it into there, then you will have all ResearchKit source code, just like that. You can look into all of it. This is not one of those Apple's little secret, libraries or anything like that. This is totally open source and everything. All right, so now that you have that, let's go over to Xcode and create a new Xcode project. And since this is a pretty simple demo app, it's going to be a single view application. And the product name is Camelot. As we'll see, because of the content. And I want to point out building in Swift, and I have the device set as iPhone. So we'll go ahead and create that project. First thing we want to do, it's just an empty project right now, so we actually want to incorporate ResearchKit into that. If you're a fan of CocoaPods, if you're a fan of Carthage, you can use one of those dependency managers to get that library in. I'm just going to do it by hand. So we have the binder ID. Find the Xcode proj right here, drag that in to your project, and that's step 1. And then step 2 is going to this embedded binary flag here, and you add the ResearchKit framework. And then we'll know to do that. So, to test that, let's go to our view controller. Might take a little bit of time the first time because ResearchKit's new. There we go, build 60 day. All right, so we got ResearchKit in. So step 1 accomplished. Now let's build those 3 steps, right? So we got informed consent, survey, and gathering data from the microphone. So the first one is going to be informed consent. So how do we do this? We're actually going to make all 3 of them the same way. They're all a task, an ORK task, to be more specific, a ResearchKit task. And then if we feed that into the view controller that we create, it'll just know magically what it should look like and how it should behave. So I'm going to cheat here. If you just search ResearchKit tutorial, actually this one here. I'm going to take all my code from here. Okay, so we got to this part. So
if you find this tutorial, you want to scroll down to the informed consent place here,
and then grab this first code snippet. And we're going to create a new file called consent.document.swift and put that as its contents. So you say new file, next code, Swift file, consent document. Set its content to that block. What's going on here? So you have an ORK consent document here, and so this document is what's going to be backing the entire task. So whatever you put with this consent document, think of it as the clipboard that the person hands you when you're in the waiting room, right? So you're like, oh, do you consent to you might have to be asked this. You might have to perform this in the study. So please sign here, potential here, you agree, disagree. So all the things that you need to put legally in your study, they go into this consent document. All right, so let's actually fill that. So first we want to put in the section of consent, and then we finish off with the signature. So continuing down here, we have these content section types. And we want to replace this to do with that block here. So what's going on here? What's going on here is we're actually telling it what are the section types. So this is where research really shows its power, and that like a lot of studies are going to have the same exact thing. So why not just build a template and say, okay, you're going to tell the user about data gathering. So you're probably going to gather some data, or you're going to tell the user about privacy, data use, time limit. All these different screens are things that you're going to have to use, and you can edit this list if you don't need one, or you can add a custom and build it out yourself if you have a custom page, which we don't in this case. But if you just want to go through a demo app and just have them all in here, you can just have those be your choices. All right. So scrolling down to the next code block here. This goes right under where we define section types. So here, we're actually not saying the section type anymore. We're actually saying, what does this page say? And for this demo, we're just going to have them all say the same thing. So for every section here, we actually just put in the same summary, we put in the same content. And then we just say, hey, these sections are all the screens in the consent flow that we need to have.
All these apps, run them fast. People even proved back then, if you write your HTML5 app right, even back then, it would perform well. So I talked about this a little bit already, that here's the technologies that are built on top of HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript. So if you're doing any web development at all today, you probably know all three of these technologies to some extent. And then we built them on top of certain frameworks. So Angular. So Angular's already got the MVC framework. They've already been able to scale out to major applications. So you know, guys went, let's build on top of this. Let's not invent another MVC framework. And so they've partnered well with Angular. They're working hand in hand with the Angular 2 guys so that they'll come out with Ionic 2 at the same time. And then for styling, they went with two ways to do it. You can either do plain old CSS, or you can use Sass. And with the Sass stuff, they have theming built into Ionic already. So if I want to change any default look and feels color-wise, they use Sass with a bunch of variables. There's like 8 different color variables. I can instantly change around how the whole app looks. Same thing for most of their styling. You could override with a few variables how it all looks and feels. And they separate out their CSS and Sass code from what you would put in there. So at any point, you could actually update their libraries without having to worry about your code being overwritten. They've done a really nice job with the CSS side. And we've talked a little about Apache Cordova. So this is the piece that does all of the compiling of your HTML code, wraps it up into a web view, and gives you back your native package. So on Android, it's APK packages, and iOS, I don't know what it ultimately goes down to, is the iOS package. And you could open those if you wanted in Android Studio or Xcode. So it's the actual packages that you need for those. And there's nothing more than middleware. People also refer to this as PhoneGap. They're kind of the same to some extent. So Cordova started as PhoneGap, and Adobe went, we think there's a lot of IP in here that we could actually make money with. So they offer like build services and other services. But we want to make the compilation middleware piece free. So they gave it to the Apache Foundation, renamed PhoneGap to Cordova. So that piece is free for the compilation side of it. So if you hear PhoneGap as the piece, really they're talking about Cordova in most cases.
And they're very native focused in Ionic. And they've looked at how do the animations work. On iOS they go left to right, on Android they go right to left. How many milliseconds is the animation at this point and what does it do? They've mirrored all of that stuff into their CSS and into their framework. So that you truly feel like you're on a native device. If I put a native app side by side with an Ionic one, you wouldn't know it unless I told you which one was the Ionic app. And so they spent a lot of time in that space. Yes?
Does that mean that the CSS is different, or they just made it so normal CSS works great?
They have made the CSS and the animations that they use mirror what the native device is actually.
But I'm asking if you write the same as you would a web app, where the transitions in CSS are identical to a web app.
So they take care of all of those transitions. So there are the same code you would write is what they did behind the scenes. They just figured out how does it all work. So that you don't have to worry about, oh, on Android I got to remember to set my transition right to left. I've never even set a transition in any of my Ionic apps. It just does it for you. And that's their goal, is that they abstract all that away so you don't have to do any of that work. You can focus on actually writing your business logic, making your app do what it should, and not worrying about all the infrastructure. They're also performance obsessed. So they've got rid of the 300 millisecond delay that a lot of web-based apps have. So if you don't know what that is when you do a touch on a website, it waits for 300 milliseconds to see, are you doing a long press? Or are you doing a press to scroll? And so there's a lot of perceived delays when you're doing that stuff. And they got rid of that, so that there's none of that delay in the scrolling. They also fixed the ng repeat. So if you put a long list in ng repeat in Angular, it binds everything at once to your DOM, which is really slow on a native device. If I go bind 1,000 items, I don't need it to render all 1,000. I can only see like maybe 5, 6. So it only binds those 5 or 6. And then as you scroll, it keeps binding the rest. So it's smooth. You don't get any of that kind of janky scrolling that you see in a lot of times. And they keep looking at all those places to fix their performance and make it as fast as possible. We support two kinds of devices today, iOS and Android, which covers about 90 to 95% of the market. Maybe going, well, what about Windows phones? It may or it may not work is their answer. It depends on what you're doing. It's not truly a priority at the moment from everything that I've gathered. They've, at random times, given Windows phone users some little nuggets to help them out. They've said they're working hand in hand with Microsoft, and then it kind of hasn't, they haven't said anything else. And all the stuff I saw recently said, not really a priority, they're focused kind of on Angular 2 and Ionic 2 on those. So hopefully, at some point, they will support the rest, the other 5 to 10% of the market. So how does this all come together? So we start with Ionic, and then we put the Angular JS underneath it. And then under that, we have our web view, or Cordova. And lastly, there's the native SDKs. Even though you don't have to even touch the native SDK at all, you could still tie into it. If you had Android or iOS development skills and you needed to do something custom, you could if you wanted to. I wouldn't necessarily suggest doing it if you don't have to. And you may be going, there is no SDK. I kind of mentioned native SDK, I didn't mention web SDK. There truly isn't one. You know, it's still a little bit of the Wild West for the web. Every vendor seems to have their version of what they think the solution will be and should be the ultimate SDK. Ionic has their version too.
You can choose to insert documents. Here we have just a JavaScript object, and we pass that JavaScript object directly into this create document function. And of course, this as well, along with pretty much every other command in this wrapper, is asynchronous. So likewise with native, we also query our documents with views. Here's an example of two views inside of this particular application. We have, let's say this is a to-do list application. The to-do list, you have lists of to-do items, and then you have tasks for each of those. So, for example, the first view, we have two conditions in order for it to return a list document. It has to have a property inside of the value called type that equals list, and it has to have a title. It doesn't matter what the title is. If those two conditions are met, it's going to return a key value. So it's going to the key is going to be the document ID, and the value is going to be, in this case, an object. The object is going to be a title and a document revision. The tasks is a little different though. Tasks, we're making sure that, of course, type is equal to task, but we also require a title and a parent list ID. Instead of making the document ID your key, in this case, we're choosing to make the key the list ID, and you'll see why I'm doing that in the next slide. Now that we've created our views, we can actually create a design document out of those, and design documents are sort of a way to keep your code clean. You can have many views inside of a design document, and you can have many design documents. It's a way for you to organize everything. So here's querying views with the AngularJS. So we have two queries here. The first one, we're querying the lists view, and it'll get all documents as long as those two conditions are satisfied, it having a title and it being a typed list. The second one's a little different though. The second one, we're passing in a third parameter. It's an options parameter, and this particular option is a start key. The start key is going to be a list ID. Because we chose to use our key instead of a document ID, a list ID, by passing in a list ID as the option, it's only going to return documents that satisfy that. So this is useful because maybe you don't want to return all tasks. Maybe you only want to return tasks for a specific list. That's how you narrow things down. And then in terms of sync gateway, to get replication started, it's going to look very similar. You're going to first, in this case, replicate from the local Couchbase Lite to the sync gateway server. And then if that succeeds, it's going to replicate in the other direction. It's going to replicate from the server down locally, and it's going to happen continuously in the background. Likewise with Android, we have to listen for these changes to display them to the user. So we can call the listen function, which uses an AngularJS broadcast. So now that we're broadcasting changes, we can now use the root scope on, and if it found Couchbase change as the broadcast, you can then work with whatever data is changed. So in this case, if you do receive that kind of broadcast, you get information like whether or not, of course, the document was deleted, or what the ID is, so that way you can further do whatever it is you need to do, like maybe remove it from the list, or add it to a list, or any number of possibilities for your application.
I could pull in the theme. They separate that out so that if you wanted to override the theme, I'm going to choose not to override the theme today, or not to include the theme today. I'll just include the main CSS. And now my page is beautiful, right? There you go. That wasn't it. I do have it installed now, though. So what does installing get me? Well, it gets me a CSS reset. CSS reset is the concept of getting all of your CSS to a known state. Each browser has baked into it a user agent style sheet. You know, if you go into the Chrome developer tools, you can see user agent.css sometimes. That user agent style sheet will get it okay, but each browser style sheet is a little different. And so ultimately we want to start from a known state. So typically we'll either use Yahoo's reset.css, or what Bootstrap uses is normalize.css. And there's kind of two approaches. The reset says, I'm going to blow everything away, I'm going to make everything vanilla. Normalize just says, I'm going to go find those outliers and tune them into place. It's a little bit lighter on the browser. So they pulled in normalize, and so those things that were weird in different browsers are now more consistent. It's not pretty yet, but we got it started. So what's next? So there's a couple of things inside of Bootstrap that do require jQuery. We won't use them yet, but oftentimes you want to put jQuery right above your Bootstrap. And then the meta viewport tag, let's come back to that one. So container. Container kind of creates the page. So let's come back in here to this page, and I will say div class equals container. So what container gives us, oh, I did not. Helps to have a path. There we go. So it's telling me that I don't have jQuery and I'm not using components as part of it, so that's a little annoying, but that's okay. So what did I get? Well, what I got was this container. Now what the container does is, based on the size of the screen, it will put a little bit of padding. There's two different containers, container and container fluid. Container says I have a fixed width page, and I want the rest of it to be white space. Until I get tiny, and then it puts in a little border. If I chose container fluid, then I would only have that border, and I wouldn't have the white space around it. So for example, I have now bigger white space because it chose to make that fixed width container that big. Okay, so I've got that container in place. Now I wanted that column-y thing, the grid system. So let's come back in here, and I'm going to say, so I've got these three pieces of content, 1, 2, and 3, and I don't want them stacked on top of each other. I want them to go across, 1, 2, and 3. So the grid system in Bootstrap is this 12-column thing. And so, yes, you can change the number of columns, don't. But it defines 12 pieces. And I can then define the things that go into those pieces, spanning one or more pieces if I would like. So a great example is this. This comes from getbootstrap.com, their website. Here's 12 columns across, and I could choose to say, so this is 6 columns and that's 6 columns, or 4 columns. Now I have the three pieces. Each one of these takes up 4 columns, or I could grab 1 column and I can mix and match. So I say call-md-1, and that's just a CSS class that I apply to that piece, and it now takes up that much width.
Any reason for the 12 number? Just curious.
12?
Yeah.
Why 12? If I want to do a 3-column layout, then 12 is easily divisible by 3. If I want to do a 2-column layout, 12 is easily divisible by 2. If I want to do, like Tilden means, 1/3, 2/3, that's easily divisible by 12. It's one of those things where probably you can get to where you need to be with 12. What I was thinking of is, why not 10? 10 seems, but then I can't do like thirds, because it's 10. So every time I define a row, then I'll get those 12 pieces in it. So I could, for example, say, now I want to make a row inside this, and I would get 12 new pieces, of which each piece would only be this wide. So I can start to nest these to build up the scale of what I want. In this website,
100,000 users if you have 1,000 rabid, loyal, and really interested users. It's a lot harder to get there if you have 10,000 users that are
they're kind of lukewarm about your idea. They've used it, they've tried it, but they're like, yeah, you know, I can, you know, fairly fickle. They can move on to something else if something else comes around the way. So a couple ways that, you know, we've seen this, you know, these are good examples just because I think a lot of people know about these, but, you know, Dropbox, obviously, they had early on, they built into their product the ability to share and to create referrals, and the incentive for that was more space, which then got more people to put files into their Dropbox folders, which just increased adoption and retention, and it was pretty genius. And they really kicked off this referral programs that everybody uses now. Airbnb, I'm not sure if you guys know about kind of how they hack Craigslist. So Craigslist doesn't have APIs that you can tap into. So these guys figured out a way. They knew that this type of activity, people trying to find places to stay and trying to rent out their places, was happening on Craigslist and other places. And so they said, well, rather than go and try to build an audience and a set of users from day one with no from scratch, why not go to a place where these users that we want already exist and this activity is already happening? So what they did was they did two hacks actually. One was that anytime that you created a listing on Airbnb, you had an option to actually post it on Craigslist. So that was pretty awesome. And then they also had a way to take listings on Craigslist and then feed them back into Airbnb with no APIs. So they were thinking obviously very, very deliberately about how they were going to grow and how they were going to build an audience from day one. Super critical. AngelList has done some really cool things as well, like the Rapportive integration. So here's how you can do it. There's 3 questions that I always ask of entrepreneurs or founders that are building new applications. How is your product? So I'm not talking about your sales team. I'm not talking about your marketing team. I'm not talking about all these sort of external heads that are going to be doing things, but how is your product going to drive attention for itself and facilitate activation? How is your product going to engage and retain users? And then how is your product going to facilitate referrals and viral growth? I'm not talking about the sales team. How's your product going to do that? And the answers are usually confounded look on their face, but it's really good to start thinking about this stuff. So how's your product going to drive attention and activation? I'll show you a couple examples. So you know what I mean. So Spotify, there's been a couple of companies that have done this, but on day one, what Spotify did was they built in pretty deep hooks into Facebook. So anytime that your friends, anybody in your social circle started listening to a song on Spotify, it would show up on your social feed. And it was pretty annoying, actually. I remember like seeing it and I was just like, oh my god, this is like the most annoying thing ever, and I could turn it off. But just the fact that they did this got them a ton of traffic. When somebody would click on that, it would take them to Spotify, and it would actually present them with a referral bonus and a discount for signing up. So that was something that the product did, right? It didn't require a salesperson, it didn't require a marketing person. The product was actively gaining attention for it. Recently, how many of you guys heard of Meerkat? So Meerkat recently did this with Twitter before Twitter cut them off, but they basically tapped into Twitter's social circle, and so anytime that you logged in, you immediately saw every single one of your Twitter people that you followed on Twitter that were on there, and so and then I think they got hit with like a message to join Meerkat as well. So they did something like really crazy like that, and within like a week, Twitter shut them off. But at that point, they had already acquired a ton of users. So think of ways that you can do that as well. Social integration into these big networks where there's already a built-in audience is a really easy way of doing that. How's your product going to drive engagement and retention?
Yeah, so Reddit, I don't know if you know when you started, Reddit just had a couple of co-founders, and the core loops of Reddit are you submit links and then you comment on them, then you troll everyone. But part of Reddit is that. And so if you go to Reddit and there's nothing there, you're never going to come back, right? So what the founders did was they created a whole bunch of sock puppet accounts and just talked to each other over and over. They talk to themselves. But people see that there's actual conversation going on, actual links being submitted that were interesting, and stuck around. I don't know exactly how long they did that, but it was long enough to clearly get in the right spot to just get that growth. They got over the hump and it just kept growing and growing and growing because they faked.
I heard MySpace did the same thing. They created a bunch of fake accounts.
Yeah.
But like, but like they used like model like pictures, so it wasn't a bunch of like ugly people profile pictures. It was like good looking people.
Yeah.
So when you go to like search or like or whatever, you're like,
Yeah.
wow,
There's pretty people here. I'm gonna hang on here. Yeah, pretty's good.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That if anybody here is building a user-generated application where they're like you rely on people to actually post content or post things on there to actually make it work, you're probably going to have to do something like that to get a lot of activity going, so people get there and aren't immediately turned away when they see an empty site.
Actually,
It may make you feel really good to do a lot of these things, but again, sometimes there's tax and risk implications to think about. I mentioned predictable losses. You don't want your business plan to suffer hiccups along the way. You want to be able to grow predictably. I'm at the end of this. So I'm going to rehash some here again, and I'll take questions here afterwards. But you know, my philosophy, the philosophy that I work with, is probably different and unique. That I work with business owners to keep more money in their business, to help them grow. And I find when I do that, it lets them flourish. It's the best place for them to grow their assets, but it needs to be protected. You can't let this thing grow and have it be vulnerable. It would be a catastrophe to see that go away. It's not if, it is when. And I know a few of you have been business owners, but you read about it all the time in the news. And cybersecurity doesn't just happen to the big companies as well. It happens a large amount in the small companies. And having somebody hack into your personal banking account or your business banking account, having somebody compromise your customer data, you know, not carrying your laptops with you, keeping them in your backpack. There's lots of things that you can easily do, but there's lots of areas for you to be impacted. Again, you have to have this plan set up in the first place. You can't suffer a claim and then try to hide things afterwards. It's usually a teamed approach. Usually it's working with groups who can see the big picture, and I work with lawyers who are very good at setting up specific LLCs in specific areas. I work with estate planning attorneys. I work with CPAs who are good to understand the tax side, and I like to make sure that all of them are working well together so that some of these ideas, a lawyer's ideas, are going to be working in conjunction with the big picture of the big plan. Again, we're trying to promote settlement here, and it's not evasion. We'd much rather settle. It's much cheaper to settle than it is to go through the courts and the law systems. And again, when we talk about cost, it's much cheaper to set up this in the beginning than it is to go through this at the end. We talked about not keeping your eggs in one basket, and that's good to do on your home front as well as it is on the business side. And yeah, that last part, which I see so many times, is just that your revocable living trusts are a great asset transferring tool. It's not a great asset protection tool. That's where I am. Oops, I got to the end of that. Can you put up the last slide? And maybe I pushed one past that. Questions? Yes, sir. I can read. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Slide deck, you have access to me in case you get those slides? Or?
Yes, and you can text me. My Twitter hashtag's there as well. I will be putting out a post on, or publish an article on LinkedIn. So I'll be doing that I'll do that on Sunday to give you guys a chance. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, then you'll be able to see that as well. Yes, sir.
So thanks for the great information. So I have a group of friends of mine that decided that it's a good idea to get into business with each other. Unfortunately, there's 15 of us. So the question I have is, there's two questions. One, is there a structure that's more favorable with potentially 15 owners? And two, is there a operational guideline to say what sort of minimum expectation do we expect from folks when someone does not meet that minimum expectation? How do we vote them out? And how do we share revenue? That kind of thing.
That's so much fun. So I know an attorney that can set you up with a LLC for $99 plus filing fees. You'll get a template, you can list everybody's name on it, and it'll be very generic, and it won't address anything that you're talking about. And so the fine details there get to be in the operation agreement, and it's easier with 2 than it is with 15. But you guys, it may be something about having 15 that you can all come to the consensus about. It is, and typically for companies starting out, it's most likely an LLC type structure and not a C Corp. And sometimes we recommend differently if there's going to be employee ownerships in there beyond the core people. But it's the devil is in the details, and those details are kept in the operating agreement, and that's not much different than a prenup for you guys. And so it's going to be everybody sitting down and understanding that we're all going to put in 10 grand to get this thing started, 150 grand going on there, and you go along the way, and now it looks like you guys may need more money than that, and time to put in another 10 grand. Well, only 10 of the 15 of you guys are able to put in that second 10 grand. What happens to those other 5 who don't? Do they get diluted? Do you do a loan? You know, there's all sorts of things that need to be kind of worked and ironed out, and all 15 of you guys agree on. And so they can be quite complicated that way, and that's where you really have to sit down, look at the big picture, try to figure out what that is, and get that started. And the other thing I will mention, because I see it quite often as well, is just to warn against, because we hear a lot about crowdsourced funding, and it's there's current legislation that we have like Kickstarter and things like that. That works out well. It's easy, it's legal, because at the end of the day you get a product. You get a t-shirt, you get a hat, you get whatever that product is by contributing, $5, $10, $15. It's this new round that's kind of the Reggae Lite, or enabling crowdsourced equity financing, actually giving shares to people you don't know. There's regulations that should be coming down the line for that, but whether you go through that sort of process or you even exhibit money from friends and families, it's very important that you do that properly. The moment that you offer, not sell, but offer somebody a share of anything for even $1, you are now making an offering on your business, a transaction of equity, and there are regulations around that. And so it's always good, and I have people that you can talk to get the explicits, and they'll sit down with you for free to understand the things you can and can't say when it comes to raising money that way as well. Because so often I hear people, and especially in Phoenix here, who have done real estate things, who have gone out to investors and raised money in the real estate realm and never were really set up properly. And when they find out, when the regulators find out that you've gone and done that, again, it's too late in the game. You're dealing with litigation.
What can we do to give back to the community, to use our skills to do interesting things? We could wield hammers, we could go build houses. That's not really the best use of our skills. It's a noble cause, though. When we're looking at philanthropic efforts, we have here in the Valley AZ Give Camp. AZ Give Camp is an opportunity where we can come together for the weekend using agile methodologies. We'll self-form teams, and we'll build software for charities. Those nonprofits who otherwise couldn't afford IT services, who couldn't afford custom software development, come to us. Software developers such as ourselves come together to build those solutions for them. In March, we're going to do the next Give Camp. We're going to build software together for lots of charities. We're hoping to do 5 or 6 or 8 charities. We'll generally meet at Phoenix College. We start Friday after work, Sunday afternoon, we will demo our completed projects. azgivecamp.org is the site. Friday afternoon we'll start. Sunday afternoon we'll finish. Sleep is optional, caffeine provided.
And without further delay, it's been a long day and family's waiting, so I'm going to have speakers come by. I'm going to have speakers come by one and pick out a raffle ticket. So let's start with Michael. Michael Luttrell. Yes. Oh. Okay, so the first item we're raffling off is, my lovely assistant here has MS2-B2 sunglasses. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Anjali here has B2 sunglasses, Bluetooth sunglasses. So they look geeky on you, but they're probably good if you're a gamer or if you're into Bluetooth, skiing and...
They have a HD camera.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, here you go. So this number is, I guess maybe the first three are the same, but I'll read them. 570643. 570643. There you go. Got a winner. Won a winner chicken dinner.
The next speaker, Srinivasa Raju, come on up to pick. We're going to raffle away the Samsung Gear.
$703. 570703.
And since you made it up so far, come onto the stage. And
678.
our next speaker, Hari Gadivadi, come on up. I'm going to keep shuffling to get it to the center.
$590.
Again on the left. So the next raffle is, the last but one, is the Amazon Echo. Rob Rich, come on up to pick a winner.
Oh, look, it's mine. 745.
So from the launch from morning, how many have you registered already on the website or downloaded the app? Okay. So I was thinking I would give this iPad mini for whoever registered and pick only those guys. No, I'm just kidding. So I just wanted to remind one more time, please go there and register if you're iPhone users, or if you're Android users, please download. Any feedback is helpful for us at this stage. Thank you. Last one.
570648.
Who is that? Oh, wow. It is on that side. Yeah. I can see that. Oh, there you go. Nice. Guys, before you go, please rate the sessions you have been to so that we know what to do next time. Please do that. It's helpful for speakers and for us. Thank you.
So I came here today looking forward to seeing the different things that mobile can do and really exploring where I can go with different apps and websites. how I might be able to take my web development and put it onto mobile. I'm really excited to see what all it can do.
Okay, we have an application called Fastlane.io, and what I was interested in is one of the presentations where they talked about integrating the smartwatch. That was done by a fellow from State Farm. So I felt that was one of the more interesting presentations to help us.
First of all, overall they have good topics to cover, but what I didn't like is I would have preferred a little more hands-on experience with some of the explanation, some of the events, rather than just looking at the website and like a third-party platform thing, more towards the development side.
I feel this festival is very interesting, so I'm very enjoy every conference and any topic. But like one times we have like 1, 2, 3, 4 at the same times. So next time if we can make it like a longer time to separate to 2 days, I'd like to go to more conference. Yeah, different topic. I can enjoy more time about it. Yeah, that is what I think.
Thanks to all the sponsors for making this an awesome festival.
Thank you to the speakers without whom we couldn't have gone any further. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the attendees. Make sure you come here again.
See you all in 2016. Woo!